The following podcast has been paid for by the new Pod Order.
Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the first episode of the new Pod Order. I'm Adam Rogers. I'm your host. I neglected to bring along my mismatched tuxedo top and khaki pants, but I went with something festive, matching for the topic at hand. To my right, my first co-host, the pride of Chadron, Nebraska, Mr. Music Man himself. But mostly we have him here because he's the only one who knows how to pronounce words like enziguri. Joe the Brain Chasic. Say hello, Joe.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing tonight?
Great, because we're talking about WCW, baby.
Absolutely.
And
I did consider bringing my 1996 era bucket hat and sunglasses to fit the theme, but I thought that might have been a bit too much.
There's never too much. This is WCW, man. Wherever you push the line, push it far. You haven't pushed it far enough. My third co-host, the man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. The man who says your prayers and eats your vitamins. The mystery third man to our team, the American brother and my brother, Matt Rogers. Say hello to the people, Matt.
Hello, brother. How's it going tonight?
You know what? I'm gonna be flop sweating shortly because this is the first time I've ever recorded a podcast of my own. But otherwise, great. Other than that, I don't know. I'm told that you were breaking the law to try to get here on time for this recording. So yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, I did just forget to turn my lights on, but hey, whatever. Yeah.
Hey. We talked about this. We were gonna go with B&E or armed robbery or something.
That's
Come on,
true.
man. All right. Well,
it did give you the opportunity, though, to tell the officer that doesn't work for me, brother.
That's true. I was just my police escort. I wasn't stuck in a muffled locker room, but
nice. Well, I guess we should probably start by talking what all of this is and why we're doing it. First of all, this is not a conspiracy theory podcast. So if you're think you want to hear about George Soros or something like that, wrong show. Go ahead and, don't shut it off. Play it to the end, download it. Maybe you'll like it, but you're going to be disappointed. Instead, recently I was on as a host on our old friend Jimmy Allen's podcast, Analyzing Attitude, where he talks about the WWF during the Monday Night Wars era, the rise of the Attitude Era and whatnot. Had a grand old time and kicked the idea over to him that, like, hey, we might as well make a spin-off or a sister show or a counterpart, taking a look at the other side of the coin, the folks down in Atlanta and what they were up to. So kicked some ideas around with these fellas, and we came up with the idea of the new Pod Order. We're going to chronicle the rise and fall of the greatest heel, I guess, kind of, not really by the end, but heel stable of all time, the New World Order of WCW. I thought we could start by tossing it over, Joe, if you want to talk about your history with WCW and NWO fandom.
All right. So, as you mentioned, being, I don't know if it's the pride of Chadron, Nebraska, but growing up on a farm outside a small Nebraska town, just far enough outside town to not be able to get cable. My WCW exposure was very limited for a very long time. Grew up as a WWF fan but we had no access to any kind of syndicated weekend, worldwide main event, any of that kind of stuff, until I was in high school, and my younger brothers actually got into WCW just probably right around this time. And as things slowed down as I neared graduation, I would catch a little bit here and there. And by early summer '98, I was on board with the WCW train, right up to the point that it left the tracks in March of 2001.
Yeah, that sounds about right, I would say. Matt, same question.
I was gonna say, I remember the time because it was when you and I used to watch pay-per-views on Fuzzo-Vision on cable, where you could
Yep.
get it, tune it in just right so you could see what was going on and hear the commentary, but not really see the picture because it was fuzzy. I don't have the clearest memory of '96, so I don't remember if we watched this one live. I feel like we did. I've seen the clips so many times that I feel like I watched it live, but it's possible I didn't. But it's one of those things, we grew up wrestling fans, and WCW was the alternative. I remember the Monday Night Wars like it was the back of my hand, having one side trying to snipe the other side's main events and everything else. So I was excited to go back and watch it. It was also a real big NWO market back in the day, but who wasn't? Let's be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I actually do remember the first thing because I was scrolling around in my room, and our bedrooms used to be right across the hall from each other, and I was clicking through, and I hit TBS, and they announced that it was going to be Macho Man and Hulk Hogan was going to be the main event of the show, and this was on a Nitro, and I was like, oh shit. And like, we knew about Hulk Hogan and Macho Man. We hadn't really watched any of it before that point, but we just, we existed in the 80s, so it was impossible not to be aware. So I can clearly remember like running across to your room, like, dude, turn on TBS. Macho Man's gonna be Hulk Hogan's gonna be fighting the Macho Man. And I went back, and we were all I was all excited for this awesome match. Like, what is this going to be doing on TV? And of course, they just dropped a net on the Macho Man, and they totally screwed you with the main event. So that set the tone from the beginning of what was to come. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan. The style of it. Look, I'm not gonna lie. The WCW NWO video game, the World Tour. Maybe Matt still has like some PTSD from Hulk Hogan's back rake followed by a clothesline combination that was the cheesiest thing of all time.
You were the dirtiest player in the game.
Yeah, before I even knew what the game was. But yeah, I mean, that's where I came into this from, and been along with it. And same kind of journey, really. But I think the main takeaway is none of us are wrestling historians. We're fans. We're wrestling nerds. But we're gonna get things wrong, and if we get them wrong and you come and comment on it, that's called engagement. So that means that we're doing a good job. And so we thought, if we're going to follow the rise and fall of the NWO, we got to start where the NWO starts, and that is Bash at the Beach, baby, 1996. The classic, the legend, the beginning of a new era and the rise of a new world order. But I think if we're going to do that, we should take a minute and talk about what was going on in the world in that week, in July 7th, 1996. Our Time magazine headline featured the movie Independence Day with the headline, Aliens Have Landed. And so it shouldn't be a shock. The number one movie that week, also Independence Day. Billboard's number one song for the week was the epic The Crossroad by Bone Thugs and Harmony. Gonna meet you at the crossroads. And it wouldn't be WCW if we didn't go spoil the results from WWF's main event. There wasn't one going on the day of, but that Raw featured Goldust with Marlena over Mark Marrow and Sable, Mankind over someone named Duke Droz. I don't know. And a Rockers reunion in the main event. Shawn Michaels beating Marty Jannetty. So hard to imagine how WCW was winning at this point with a stacked lineup like that. Anyway, on to Bash at the Beach. We're at the Ocean Center in beautiful Daytona Beach, Florida. The show got a buy rate of 250,000 people, which is good, I guess. I don't know. But WCW at this point is right at the beginning of the infamous 83-week period where they were number one in the ratings for pro wrestling. And that is huge and unprecedented at this point. WWF has been the uncontested champion for over a decade at this point. And now this upstart company in Atlanta has come along and is knocking them out of the way. And it's not hard to see why when you see the sick CGI shark on the logo for Bash at the Beach at the beginning. Some real 90s CGI technology at work there. Leading us into a video package of the main storyline going into the show, the invasion of WCW by the Outsiders. And Joe, as brain of the show, you volunteered to do a little history, go back and jump on the grenade of watching some old Nitros for us. So why don't you give us a rundown of the Outsiders invasion angle and what's been going on the previous shows?
All right. So for our recap, we have to go all the way back to Memorial Day on Monday Nitro when we have the epic showdown between the Mauler and Steve Dahl, which I'm sure had the fans wondering, what are these two doing wrestling on Monday Nitro? Because I know I'd never heard of either one of them before. And when suddenly in the background, you see the crowd starting to react as a figure clad in so much denim comes walking down the stairs, hops over the guardrail, grabs a microphone, comes into the ring, and drops the famous "You know who I am, you don't know why I'm here" promo. The match just kind of stops. Nobody's like, "Hey, get this guy out of here." They just leave. It's pretty surreal, to be perfectly honest. Like
WCW.
But it actually really did do an excellent job of selling the idea that, hey, this wasn't supposed to happen, right? Like, because nobody knew how to react. But we get a little bit more about you want a war, we'll bring you a war, and Hall manages to get out of the ring before anyone shows up to try to deal with him. They come back the next week, and at the end of the show, ERIC Bischoff is trying to sign off for the night when Hall comes out to confront him. Cuts basically the same promo as the week before, but he's interrupted by Sting, who goes ahead and challenges him which prompts Hall to promise to bring a big surprise next week. Shortly, just basically immediately, either before or after, depending on the week. An interesting thing that I noticed that I'm sure folks didn't think anything of at the time. There's this excellent video package on Hulk Hogan that runs about 2 minutes. Really, really putting him over as the biggest babyface in the world, showing off all his celebrity friends, going ahead and making sure that we know all about all the charity work that he's done since he showed up in WCW. So, of course, obviously, we're positioning the immortal Hulk Hogan as the guy who's going to deal with these ruffians from the outside. Hall does return the next week, brings out Kevin Nash, who comes up from behind Bischoff, takes Bischoff's mic away, makes sure to point out the adjective in Where the Big Boys Play. He meant the verb. The verb, Kevin. And this leads
big
to
sexy, not big grammar. So.
Yes. But this leads to the Great American Bash, where Bischoff confronts Hall and Nash, ends up getting powerbombed through the stage when he refuses to tell the two of them who is going to defend WCW's honor against them, and the third man that they have now announced will be joining them. We do a couple more weeks where we hype a big random draw to determine who's going to do this, because of course WCW has so many worthy challengers for these two outsiders, and it ends up that on the same night that they announce the results of the random draw, where Sting, Lex Luger, and Randy Savage are selected to oppose Hall, Nash, and the third man. Hall and Nash come out, distract Sting and Luger during a three-way tag title match, letting Booker T roll Luger up to take the tag titles from Sting and Luger. Appropriately, this was Harlem Heat's 5th tag title reign. But also, we're pushing the stakes a little higher. Very nice storytelling. And finally, here on the very last Nitro before the pay-per-view, Hall and Nash come to ringside halfway through the show. They've got tickets, so no one can kick them out. But of course, they don't stay long before they wander over to the announcers area, get a microphone so that they can antagonize a returning ERIC Bischoff, who's just gotten done recuperating from being put through the stage by their powerbomb. And the WCW trio comes out to confront them, but the locker room empties, separating everyone and getting us built up for tonight's main event.
Thanks for that recap. Matt, that's a hell of a story. And you can feel it coming into this from the tension, how much this has been built up, right down to the question of where's ERIC Bischoff at?
I was going to say that is the number one question of the night. Where is ERIC Bischoff? He's been missing since Nitro, and we don't know, but I guess we'll have to find out as the night goes.
Actually, as it turns out, there are 3 very important questions that need to be answered. Because, yes, first and foremost, where is ERIC Bischoff? Mm-hmm. Second, obviously, who is the third man? But
Who's the third man?
The third question that nobody seems to remember is, do any of these announcers own a jacket that actually fits?
Tony Schiavone doesn't. I'll tell you that much, because I swear he must have just showed up to the show or lost his luggage or something, because I think maybe Dream loaned him his tuxedo top, because that thing is gigantic on him.
Dusty's jacket is pretty loose fitting too. Bobby's is pretty good. I do think that Bobby probably has lost a little bit of weight in the time leading up to this show, but man, the other two, it's just did you just go to wardrobe and say, hey, I need a jacket?
Yeah, they didn't go to Men's Warehouse because they didn't like the way they looked. Nobody guaranteed it. Mm-hmm. Heenan and Schiavone, or Heenan and the Dream, want to just cut straight to the action. Let's get to the main event right now and get this sorted out, but we can't do that. We've got 2.5+ hours of wrestling entertainment to get through before that point, starting with a match with something that you can tell no one in that arena has ever seen before, outside of possibly Iron Mike Tenay, who is our special guest commentator that joins us from the Wrestling Observer. But Tenay knows about Lucha Libre, and that's what we're about to see, because we are about to see Rey Mysterio face Psychosis, which I have to keep correcting myself. He's Psychosis at this point, but he just becomes kind of Psychosis later on. Anyway, Matt, I know you were probably psyched about Psychosis's ring gear being a Tommy Mark from the Power Rangers.
He had a very White Rangers vibe on his entrance. Mm-hmm. Not gonna lie, that is a very epic set of gear.
Ray in his, blue kind of bodysuit look comes down to the ring. This match is happening in large part because Mr. Mysterio had a very eye-opening cruiserweight title match with the current cruiserweight champion Dean Malenko on the previous pay-per-view, the Great American Bash. And really, this heralds another, I think, thing that doesn't get as much credit, but should, for being what separates and distinguishes WCW during this era, which is the cruiserweight division. Because literally, the cruiser title has only been here since March. March 1996, you get your cruiserweight title created, and for me, the two things that define this era of WCW is the NWO and the cruiserweight division. That's what I remember.
Absolutely, they had an amazing set of cruiserweights. It blows my mind that the cruiserweight style of wrestling went out after WCW went out and it's kind of faded into the background, but that was one of their bread and butters.
Yeah. And I mean, we're just getting started in it. Eddie Guerrero is in a dark match on this card, but he is very mustached and very much kind of a rookie baby face at this point. We don't have Ultimo Dragon. I'm not sure if Juventud Guerrero is around at this point, and obviously no La Parca, clearly the most important of the Luchadors.
The chairman is missing.
Mm-hmm. But what we do have tonight is a match between two very familiar opponents. These guys trained together, and you can tell from when they're working out in the ring, this is them doing what they've done together 100 times, which is not to say that it's smooth, because they still almost kill themselves a whole lot of times during the course of this match. But that's kind of a feature, not a bug, for Lucha Libre. But surprisingly, it starts off with some mat wrestling, like some really good, really unique mat wrestling, which I don't know about you, Joe, but that is not what I expected to see out of a Rey versus Psychosis match. At the beginning.
No. But it was really great to see. Like, it was great to see. One thing that the cruiserweight division does tend to do a little later is we just go straight to the high spot after high spot, and they did a really good job of having a slow build, and then hitting a high spot, and then dialing it back down and hitting a high spot. Really kind of giving the crowd a chance to letting things breathe after the big moments, so that the crowd had a chance to recover and really kind of take in what they were getting to see.
Yeah, and I know when I was watching it, I was actually really impressed, because I remember end stage WCW cruiserweights where, like you said, it was spots, and this was Psychosis was working really well as a heel here, like his mat wrestling and psychology, trying to keep Rey down, working on his legs, putting him in a lot of, I know there was a surfboard stretch at one point, there was several leg locks. It was a well designed setup to what became the spots at the end, but I was really impressed. I didn't remember Psychosis having that much, outside of the high flying. So that was really fun to watch.
Yeah. And I mean, in a way, they're kind of perfect opponents to each other, because you got this big, dude with the horns, nasty looking heel, picking on this poor, mean 14-year-old kid that's out there trying to wrestle against him. Just kidding. He's probably at least 18 at this point. But, so you've got that classic David Goliath, which you also kind of need in a cruiser match, because you need somebody to be the base, and Psychosis works fantastic as a base for Rey's moves, but he can do a bit of high flying himself, which is what comes up next when he does a spin kick that takes Rey outside of the ring, followed by a plancha over the top rope to the outside. That, I mean, like, today that move happens and crowd goes nuts. It happens at this point, and it's almost silent because the crowd doesn't know what to make of it. And that is so bizarre.
Yeah, I think they were worried that he hurt himself. I did appreciate Bobby Heenan interjecting with he bent one of his horns.
Yeah. Yes. The horn updates were what really was necessary in this match.
Mm-hmm. Critical part of his anatomy. We go along, we see a lot more high spots, and we start talking a bit about how Rey Mysterio used a maneuver that he picked up from his idol, Scott Steiner, the Frankensteiner. Now, the math kind of doesn't work on that one, as far as I can tell. He is quite a bit younger than Scott Steiner, but they debuted like 5 years apart from each other. But I did a little bit of a deep dive on the Hurricane Rana / Frankensteiner thing, because I wanted to know the answer, and I wanted to get the answer for you, the podcast viewer. And it turns out the Hurricane Rana was invented in 1950, so probably not inspired by Scott Steiner. Invented by Huracan Ramirez, thus the name. It's a combination of his name, and then the Rana part is frog, which has to do with the pin at the end of it, which is critical. And a thing I wasn't aware of, which is that the true Hurricane Rana is the one that Rey Mysterio does for a false, and then for the actual finish in this match, where you Hurricane Run and then grab the legs and pin. The maneuver where we see most of the time today that they call a Hurricane Rana actually really is the Frankensteiner. That was where it came from. But they just kind of throw Hurricane Rana out as a blanket statement for all of it. So I don't know, maybe not that interesting, but I thought it was. But it's just part of just a series of high spots that get started going at this point, triggering. I think when the crowd really starts to catch on to like, oh wait, we're seeing something really special here, is a point where Rey gets alley-ooped out onto the apron. Psychosis comes out after him, and then Rey ends up like vaulting him into this head on the top of the turnpost and then down to the ground spot. That's where you first start to hear like a real pop happen, and like, whoa. I've seen that spot done 100 times. I don't know if I've ever seen it done better than that. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I had a lot of notes once the high flying stuff started, because you could tell it. The crowd's energy really started to light up around the time where they did that spot. I know there was a couple times where I think there was a top rope senton where Rey overshot a little bit and smacked his knee on the barricade, where the commentary didn't know how to handle it. They kind of started freaking out. Oh, I think he blew out his knee. He hit it on the barricade. But, all around, it was a very good series of high spots that Psychosis and Rey put together. You kind of forget now that Rey Mysterio is 50 and moves a little bit slower, but he could really move back in these days.
Yeah, speaking of the commentary, the commentators, you can actually almost kind of follow where the crowd is at, because the commentators kind of come along with them as the match goes along. Because it starts out, they're making jokes. Heenan says that Rey has Demi Moore's hairstyle from G.I. Jane. There's a point that like Psychosis goes for a guillotine leg drop, and like Tenay calls it, and Dream's like, "Oh, it's just about to say that guillotine leg drop." Like, it's a joke at the beginning, and it's easy to see how you get there, because you have these people in like cartoon costumes that are out here wrestling, and then as it goes along, you just feel them buy into it more as they suddenly realize what they've got going on in the ring.
I know I wrote in my show notes when I was watching it, I wrote, boy, the commentators are not into this match at all. But then when the pace picked up and they started hitting those moves that you don't see in American wrestling at this point, you could tell when they finally got into it, because they were paying attention and they were on the calls. They weren't joking or talking about the main event. Or I think there was at least one "Where's Bischoff" in the middle of this match too, which was starting to get frustrating to me, because I was like, you have, even when it was
bad news.
Yeah, even when it was like a slow work rate match at the beginning, it was still a really good match, and it was frustrating me to listen to commentary just sound like they didn't give two hoots about it at all. Thankfully, they came back by the end, but I was, for a good first half of the match, I was like, come on, guys, just call the match.
Yeah, and that's not to say, that all of the things go smoothly. Rey, I think, in one of the most, it's not right to call it a botch, because the move works, like it does what it needs to do, but he does one of his Frankenstein or Hurricane Ranas while Psychosis is standing on the apron. Psychosis is out on the outside, I think. He does the move, and he somehow manages to hit his head on the bottom rope and then come around and into the guardrail at the same time, which is what inspires my "it has been 0 days since a Rey Mysterio related accident" sign. We'll keep a tally as we're going along. But Joe, isn't that, I think that's part of what makes the Cruiser stuff so exciting, is just this feeling of like, this could go real wrong at any point.
Yeah. When like we said in the intro, we're 2 years away from me ever seeing any of this, and I can tell you right now that was instantly a huge draw of watching these. And I'm going to use the word tiny very loosely, because for average size, for normal people, these are still pretty big guys for the most part. But these relatively tiny guys just flying around doing things that you're pretty sure the human body isn't supposed to be able to pull off. And at any given time, you're just sure that somebody is going to land right on top of their head, and they're going to have to stop everything. But kudos to, especially to the guys at this point who are really pioneering this as a style in the United States, because I think a thing that doesn't really get pointed out a ton is how much different the rings, the ropes, and everything are in WCW to what these guys are accustomed to working with, whether they're wrestling in Mexico or Japan or wherever. And to come out, this is like Rey's third WCW match, I think. At least his third that's, majorly televised. And I mean, outside of this specific moment and the hitting the leg on the rail, it's, I mean, if you weren't looking for those things, you'd never see it because of how smooth it all.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, speaking of things that you can't imagine how the human body's going to do it, the crowd is at a fever pitch going into the end of this. Everything is going crazy. And then we hit one of the craziest finishes, I think maybe ever. Definitely one of the craziest ones I've ever seen. Psychosis is up on the middle rope. He's about to do what we'll eventually know as the Razor's Edge, or the Outsider's Edge, but they go with a Splash Mountain is what I guess it's technically called at the time. He's going to bring Rey down over his head, and somehow Rey reverses that into the Hurricane Rana from the middle rope down into a pin. Heenan is even marking out for it as the 1, 2, 3 comes down, ending of an incredible match. Final thoughts from you guys on the match. Matt, you go first.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say,
we're podcasting rookies, folks.
Yes. At the end of the day, it was probably the best card on the match. I mean, I don't even think there's a competition. The main event obviously has a lot more historical importance, but this match, it stole the show. I mean, you always want to have a good curtain and a good end, and this was an amazing curtain match. Pulling it up, I think I don't know what the wrestling rating system that it got was. I doubt it was a 5-star, but it was a solid match that got the crowd into it. It got them up on their feet, and overall, I'd give it at least 4.5 stars. It was a very good match.
It's 4 3/4 on the Observer, and like if you put this on like a Dynamite today, Meltzer would give this like 6 stars, but that's because he's blown the top off of his scale at this point.
6.5 if it was in Japan, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, Joe, absolutely agreed. I think that I was a little more conservative, and I think I called it 4 stars. But that's just because there were a handful of times where they looked a little bit tentative, and I do think it was a little bit of what I mentioned, where they're kind of feeling out the differences in what they have to do stylistically because of ring size, style of ropes, that kind of thing. But man, like this, yeah, absolutely. This and Rey's 2 matches that he's had with Dean Malenko blow everything that is happening in WCW from a wrestling standpoint out of the water right now.
And you'd hate to have to be the thing to follow that up, which leads us to our next segment. Mean Gene Okerlund in the back interviewing Conan, which starts with Gene basically making Conan explain the finish to him because he doesn't understand what just happened. And Conan just flatly being like, yeah, they did a top rope Splash Mountain into a Hurricane Rana for the win. Very matter of fact. But then we set up the match that we've got coming later between Conan and the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Woo! We're going to have way more impressions on our show than Jimmy's show. I'm just saying, better show. Conan talks about how Rick is overconfident. He comes out to the ring with an entourage, women, the other 4 horsemen. Meanwhile, Conan is overcautious, but he doesn't have an entourage. He doesn't have friends, but he's out there and he's confident he can handle it. He'll take out managers. He'll clothesline the women if they get up on the ring, which that's a bummer, but oh well. Matt, what do you think about this promo?
I wondered the whole time if that was something off the cuff or if it was written for him, because Conan to me didn't feel really comfortable with what he was saying. He was really rough on the mic there for what he ends up being as somebody who watched WCW minutes later. I was kind of surprised. I don't remember Conan from this time, and like that was one of the rougher times of somebody was on the mic this entire pay-per-view. So kind of struck me as odd, but I don't know. It might have just been awkwardness with the writers giving him something he wasn't comfortable with.
I mean, there is always potentially, doing a promo for an English audience. He is at this time one of the biggest stars in Mexico. He is not just the United States champion. He is the Mexican heavyweight champion at this time. He is the biggest name there. In his 83 Weeks podcast, Bischoff kind of made the analogy of this Conan versus Flair match is almost like a Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair match for the Mexican wrestling crowd. So, Joe, I mean, do you think the match does a good job, or the promo does a good job of setting the match up for later?
This is clearly Conan getting used to cutting promos in the U.S. style. But I really actually think he does a pretty good job of selling the match, especially given the fact that this thing has had no build. Literally, the build for this match is on the Nitro the previous Monday. Oh, by the way, Ric Flair and Conan are wrestling for the U.S. title. So they've got a couple of interview segments to do a build for the match, and given the lack of material to work with, I think Conan does a pretty solid job.
Yep. And we'll see how the rebuttal comes for that later on in the show. But first, we got to head back out to the ring. Like I said, I would hate to be the one to have to follow, but it's a good thing we have the level of quality that we can expect from a match of Big Bubba, the soon-to-be eventually Big... Well, no, wait. Was he the Big Boss Man before this, and then he becomes Big Bubba, or is it the other way around?
Other way around.
So, other way around. Okay.
He's big. He is Big Bubba in the 80s before he ever goes to the WWF. He's the big. Then he's the Big Boss Man. Then he comes to the WCW, and he is just the boss. Just coming out in a black version of his WWF attire. And WWF didn't appreciate that. So he's gone through a couple more gimmick changes since, and now we're back to the old, a new spin on the old Big Bubba gimmick.
Yep. And he's with Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, representing the Dungeon of Doom, a stable that I was honestly not aware existed. Joe, did you, in the course of your stuff, I hate to keep coming back to you for this, but did they talk about the Dungeon of Doom? What is the Dungeon of Doom? Why is the Dungeon of Doom?
So, the Dungeon of Doom, most of our reference to the Dungeon of Doom in the build is going to be their interactions with the Four Horsemen. The big push, the Dungeon of Doom concept is something that Kevin Sullivan has used off and on over the years as he's wrestled in different promotions around the country. But basically, the Dungeon of Doom's function in WCW was to be a monster factory to feed guys to Hulk Hogan. That their whole purpose in their real life purpose was to be a monster factory to feed guys to Hulk Hogan. Their kayfabe purpose is to put an end to Hulkamania.
Right. And I think later on we'll have some comments from the Giant on that very subject. But facing off with Big Bubba, Matt, I'm sure that you were as excited as I was to see John Tenta, and definitely did not have to Google who is John Tenta.
I didn't Google it, but I went through this match. I didn't realize the build for this had his hair half shaved, so I was really curious why he had a half mullet. I have a huge note that says, "What's with the half mullet?" But also, there was one thing you did forget to mention. It came up during entrances. Where is ERIC Bischoff?
Where is he? We're at number 2 now, yes?
Yeah, that's 2. That's our second big where is ERIC Bischoff? I made a sign.
Still no answer.
That way I don't have to interrupt you next time.
No, that's fine. No,
I can say as a late 80s WWF mark, I actually was legitimately super excited to see the Earthquake, John Tenta.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Doing something that wasn't I mean, he still is kind of just being a human earthquake. I mean, he's still doing the mannerisms, but John Tenta is a really interesting guy. He's actually like a legit sumo wrestling champion. And he does a pretty good job of incorporating, not in this match. Let me be clear. Generally speaking, he does a pretty good job of incorporating a lot of that style into his matches, and he's a guy that, especially for his era, had a pretty unique offense in the ring.
Yeah, and we see some of that not sumo style kick off the start of this as Tenta hits the ring, intent on vengeance for the aforementioned involuntary haircut, which leads to some classic heel hits, runs out of the ring to get away from the face, chase each other around. Heel gets in the ring, face gets in the ring, heel jumps on him while he's coming through the ropes. The classics are classics for a reason. It's right around this point where they're discussing how in the hell anyone is ever going to climb up the pole, because this is a Carson City silver dollar match where there is a pole mounted on one corner of the ring, which has a sock full of Carson City silver dollars in it. If you get the sock, you can use it as a weapon, and I guess you win the match at that point. I'm not sure. Anyways, it's right around here where Heenan just kind of gives away the finish, because they're saying none of them can get up the pole. How are they going to get up there? And Heenan's like, well, why don't you send Jimmy Hart up there? And this will be a recurring theme throughout the show. Tenta's supposed to be built at 500 pounds. I'm not sure he's quite there. He's 400 plus is what he's listed at, but he's not Andre the Giant, and even Andre wasn't 500. But
I was going to say, I wrote that down in my notes too. I had Tenta 500 pounds ? Because he is a large man. 500 pounds, I do not buy.
No. Yeah. I mean, he's big, but he's not there. But this does lead to, a sequence of one man tries to go up the pole, the other man comes and hits him, then he tries to go up the pole, then the other man comes and hits him, and so on forth, so back and forth for a while. And then it becomes a little confusing for me because I'm not sure. Is this match supposed to be no DQ? Because at one point, Bubba is choking Tenta with his bootlaces, I think, or his wrist wraps or something.
His belt.
It was a belt. I have it written here.
Belt.
Here I have it written. A series of belt spots, including a choking one. So yeah, the belt came into play pretty quick.
Now, admittedly, this is a choke that involves putting the belt around the back of Tenta's neck and pulling him down on the ropes. So not your classic choking style. But still, the referee's right there and watching. And if this is a no DQ match, who gives a shit about the sock with the quarters? Just go get a chair or something like that. If it is a match where you can be disqualified, what's the ref doing through all of this? These are my questions, especially when Bubba then puts out tape and tapes up Tenta to the ring ropes.
Yeah. I have in my notes, did anybody tell these guys the stipulations for the other matches on the card? Because
clearly not.
Introducing the athletic tape was a choice when the very next match on the show is going to use the same gimmick.
Yeah, I'm far from a professional wrestling booker, but I think even I know that if you've got a whole match organized around athletic tape, maybe don't start using athletic tape in a different match on the card. Yeah, Matt, I don't know. Early parts of this match, as everything's going along, what are you thinking? Are you excited? Are you asleep? What's going on?
Well, it was filling the role it needed to fill. You need a cooler after you have a hot start like that. And this was a classic cooler. The crowd, I wrote a couple times, the crowd really couldn't care less, I don't think. They do pop a few times when they're doing things with weapons, but in the beginning, not to steal a WWF term, but you had big meaty men slapping each other for a really long time. There were no wrestling moves. It was kicks, punches, belts for some reason. It was a hot mess. And as we move towards the middle of the match, when we get the scissors involved, and we're still trying to figure out how are these two gigantic men going to wander up this pole, and then you have Tenta starting to try to cut the braces off so the pole will just fall down. You're kind of riding yourself in a corner since Heenan already spoiled the ending, but I thought the middle of the match and the beginning of the match were basically the same. They're pretty boring.
Right. And I think the managers have the wrong idea, because first off, clearly Bubba is actually practicing safe bond and responsible bondage play with Tenta, because he only restrains one of his arms. So Tenta could just reach over with the other arm and untape himself. But he's also brought they when he brings out the scissors, they think, oh my gosh, he's gonna do the other side of his hair, which honestly would be an improvement. But these are not the kind of scissors that one would use for hair. These are surgical fabric shears, which are good for basically cutting tape, cutting cloth, like those straps on the pole, which Bubba uses that free arm, Tenta uses that free arm to low blow Bubba, get the scissors, get himself loose, and as you said, start cutting down the pole. That doesn't work either. Bubba cuts him off. They get back into a brawl, and then we hit what was sort of foreshadowed, maybe is the word, by Heenan, where we send 50-plus-year-old Jimmy Hart climbing up the pole, shimmying up there like he's been working the pole all his life to go get that sock, come down with it, victorious, only to discover that Tenta has cut him off, steal the sock, kind of push him, which thank God, because if he pushed him for real, he might have just died, and then turn around and bop him in the chest with those coins for the big finish, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. As Tenta is draining the sock, so to speak, onto Bubba and putting the coins on his eyes. What do you guys think? What's your takeaway from this match as we go into the next section?
So I think my takeaway is I really think Dusty has the line of the night here. The first time that Tenta sort of tries to climb the pole, Dusty spouts out, "I do not believe that he can climb that pole with his body and get that fuck with the silver dollars down." And it's just like only Dusty would say something that obvious in that way.
Yes.
Listen, brother, I gotta tell you, I think you're underselling Jimmy's ability to climb that pole. Like when he started up, I was like, there is no way that man is going up that pole. And he shot up that pole like it owed him money. Like I was impressed. So I'm going to put Jimmy Hart over here. He surprised me at his ability to shimmy up a pole and get a stupid sock with silver dollars down from the top of it. But at the end of the day, the match was good for what it was. It was a cooler from a pretty hot start. Was it a good match? No, it wasn't even in the same area code as a good match. I ended up giving it about a 2-star rating in my own opinion, just because it filled the role that it was supposed to fill, but it was also bad. It could have not been there, and I would have been no worse off.
Climbing that pole in dress shoes, no less. Yeah. So dress shoes and a button-up shirt. Underrated talent, that Mouth of the South.
Jimmy loves his guys.
Yeah, what's our count at there? Where is Eric Bischoff?
An important thing coming out of it is, where is Eric Bischoff? I put in my notes, Eric check. Oh, still missing. So we're on number 3.
Well, the only thing we can do is go on with the show and cut to the back to Gene interviewing Team WCW, a moment that I'm sure we've all been looking forward to since we watched the show. We've got our Team WCW members. We've got the Macho Man, Randy Savage. We have the total package, Lex Luger. And you've got Sting, the man called Sting, and all of them wearing Sting face paint. And I think I watched the Nitro before, and Macho was even wearing the Sting face paint back then. Has it been pretty much since the lottery? Yeah, that's what I kind of figured.
Yes. And not only are they all wearing face paint, each man's face paint is color coordinated with his ring attire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like
this is WCW.
The attention to detail is honestly great. I think I would have appreciated more if their ring attire was color coordinated instead of being pink and yellow and purple and black and white and green and black and yellow, and just kind of being this, I don't know, Jackson Pollock painting of dudes. But
one of the perks of having Ted Turner dollars is you can have that attention to detail to get the matching face paint. But Gene starts the interview off, and he goes to the one that I know we were all probably wanting to hear from the most, the Macho Man himself, asking him about what his take on the match is and who he thinks the third man, to which Savage responds, he doesn't care who the third man is because it's an equal opportunity, equal war type situation. We head over to Luger and Sting, who are standing uncomfortably close to each other in a way that I did not enjoy. Luger delivers some standard promo stuff. We cut back to Sting. Sting gets philosophical about the effects that the unknown has on his body, how it sends chills all the way through him. Somehow, and basically they get riled up to the point that you would think they're about to run out to the ring and go start the match, even though it's happening about 2 hours from now. But one of the things we thought, well, let's kick it around the horn. Matt, what do you think about the promo here?
Honestly, I wrote in my notes, it was very awkward. The three didn't have a whole lot of chemistry. Macho tried to save it in the beginning. He did a good job as a setter in the beginning. He set it up real good. We pass it off to Luger,
Sorry, we passed it off. Macho Man interruptions.
Yeah, we passed it off to Luger, who I wrote down. Well, that didn't go very well for Luger because the lines weren't great. The delivery was pretty bad. Sting was a choice. I believe I put Sting ... Yeah, I guess, because that whole the unknown, it sends chills down my spine. It was corny in all the ways you want wrestling to be corny, but also all the ways you don't want wrestling to be corny. It was an amazing balance of good and bad, I guess.
It's an oddly charismatic way of saying I'm afraid, which is not really the promo that you're looking to cut before you go defend the honor and the company that you work for. Joe, we had a little talk before we started as we were planning all this, a little segment that we were planning on putting for any of the Macho Man promos that come along. I've tentatively called it the madness scale, open to comments, but on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the Macho Man trying to pretend he's a normal wrestler doing a normal promo, 5 being cup of coffee in the big time and the beat goes on and the beat goes on, level insanity. Where would you put this promo on the madness scale?
All right, so this one's a little interesting because I would say for Macho's contributions, this is actually probably like a 2.
Right.
Like, this is a pretty normal dude promo for Macho, but I think we have to give him a little extra credit because even as awkward and uncomfortable as Luger and Sting's promos were, my note on Sting's promo was, check the side effects on your medications because you sound like a pharmaceutical commercial. But he raises the intensity of their promos beyond what they typically are. So I think we got to go with it like at a 3 on the madness scale.
I think that's fair. And also jumping in the middle of other people's promo section to just shout at them is I think that's half a point just by itself. Matt, what do you think? 3 on the madness scale?
Yeah, I would. It wasn't the best. It wasn't peak madness. That's what we'll put down there.
No.
2. I was more around the 2-star range. It was, I guess I had kind of forgotten how incredibly over the top Macho is every time he opens his mouth. Even in the beginning, when he was trying to set the promo up for the other 2 guys, I was like, I had forgotten that this was Macho Man Randy Savage, and I'm happy to have rediscovered it. So I can't wait to see where the Macho scale goes from here.
Good. I think we'll split the difference. We'll call it a 2.5. It's good. It's a solid start, but it leaves us some room to build and go from there. And so, like I said, everybody's fired up. It's time for the big match. No, it's not. It's time for DDP and Hacksaw Jim Duggan in a my notes say taped fist Lord of the Ring match. I was frankly baffled by this match. Joe, maybe you can set the table for us on this one.
Okay, this is another one. We don't have a whole lot of build. We have 2 weeks for this one. Of course, the first week is just while DDP is wrestling Marcus Alexander Bagwell, because he's not buff yet. For said Lord of the Ring. Boy, what a confusing name. We announced that at the pay-per-view it will be Jim Duggan versus Diamond Dallas Page, and we don't do anything else with it. But it's okay, because on the pre-pay-per-view Nitro, during the open, while Larry Zbyszko and Tony Schiavone are trying to put over the importance of the upcoming Hostile Takeover match, and Larry Zbyszko drops the immortal phrase "New World Order," DDP comes out just to kind of interrupt what they're talking about, because he can't find his ring. It's gone. Somebody stole it because they're all jealous because nobody can beat him for it. And this is kind of a running storyline throughout the night. We get a DDP match against Scotty Riggs, where we cut in for the box promo. How we miss you box promo, something that we could use a whole lot more even in today's wrestling. Hacksaw has an interview, and he wouldn't take DDP's ring because he doesn't wear jewelry. Which
famously,
tracks.
You can't see any jewelry on him when he comes out to the ring.
Tracks.
DDP polishes off Scotty Riggs without too much trouble. Accosts Mean Gene on the way to the back. Tries to frisk Gene, and Gene says, "I'll sick my lawyers on you," which was, boy, Gene is cranky around this time.
Yes, yes, he is. He's very mean, as his name would imply.
He is. But just before the end of the show, we have another interview with Hacksaw later in the night, because he was in the men's room and he found the Lord of the ring on the floor in the men's room, which of course leads to DDP coming in to confront him. And Hacksaw makes a point of saying, "I wouldn't have stolen this ring because I wear a man-size ring, not this feminine thing." Boy, it doesn't age the best. But Page comes back to confront Hacksaw. Hacksaw kind of throws the ring at him, lands on the floor, and as DDP bends down to pick up the ring, Jim reaches into his trunks, pulls out a roll of tape, quickly wraps his fist, and cheap shots Page.
Right.
And I guess
that leads us to the stipulation of them having their knuckles taped for this match. And we were having a discussion earlier today about why, because famously the most dangerous oh my gosh type of boxing is the bare knuckle boxing. But you set the record straight, Matt, with me about how, well, taping the fist isn't exactly going to make them less dangerous as you're going along.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you the opportunity to hit harder without worrying about breaking your bones. So, while I also understood from a standpoint of this is professional wrestling, so, taping your fists so you don't break them when you're punching somebody doesn't make a lot of sense. In the grand scheme of combat sports, I suppose you could sell it. I guess another thing I wanted to touch on too, just because I know we talked about it earlier, because none of us really understood what a Lord of the Ring was. Just for some background,
it was created by Sauron, forged in the fires of Mount Doom. I think you all know the story.
I think you're thinking of the wrong one. This is the one that was handed out at Slamboree in 1996 after a tag team tournament. That was randomly drawn tag teams, qualified people for the Lord of the Rings Battle Royal, which DDP ended up winning. The best guess that historians can put together, since there were a few times there were slips where people called it the King of the Ring. It was WCW's admittedly lame attempt at having their own King of the Ring. Diamond Dallas, for winning this match, not only received the Lord of the Rings ring, he also had a future WCW championship match. And this was the first of several Lord of the rings defenses, because WCW wanted to keep DDP in the story at the top of the card without putting him into the WCW title match that he's earned by winning the match.
And if we're interested in spoilers here, the big spoiler is DDP never gets the title match that he's owed for getting this ring. It never happens. We just kind of forget about it, which isn't the worst thing in the world when it comes to forgetting a wrestling stipulation, but it is kind of funny that this was the thing to get him positioned near the top of the card, and we just don't follow through.
Maybe he lost it again. We do have, as we've said many times, we've got taped fists, and that's what this match is all about. So naturally, we start out with some grappling and Hacksaw Jim Duggan throwing some shoulder blocks. Start of this is some, good old wrestling, your classic kind of stuff. I don't know. Over the course, I think we called this kind of like a Southern styles kind of stipulation, and that's really kind of what we got out here. This is good old RASSLIN wrestling going on out here in the ring, right up until we start heading to taping Hacksaw's legs around the post. Again, kind of boned by Bubba earlier in the previous match.
Well, I also wrote down in my notes because when they go to do the tape around the post spot, the tape kind of goes into business for itself. DDP struggles mightily to get the tape to actually tape Hacksaw's legs, kind of comically, actually, before he gets it going. I was actually laughing under my breath watching him struggle to tape his legs.
Right, and the cartoon logic continues as Page now untapes Hacksaw's fists, which I guess makes them less dangerous. But he doesn't stay taped up to the post for long. The referee's out there to get him loose. Duggan brings a comeback in, leads to a really funny, almost kind of Looney Tunes spot where like DDP is half in and half out through the ropes, and Duggan is like seesawing him up and down, which I laughed. I don't care if it was silly. I thought it looked cool. I was like, that all right, I can probably honestly count on one hand the number of times I've seen Hacksaw Duggan do anything besides and like shoulder block someone. So this was honestly refreshing to see him in a real match. Joe, what do you think about things as we were going along?
It's rough. We're clearly filling time with this match. Yeah. But it's really kind of a shame because like Duggan is a pretty good brawler. Page has a lot going for him, but there's just no chemistry here. These are two guys that there's no. Again, we don't really have any kind of a story here for them to take advantage of. But we do get, speaking of funny spots involving the ropes, we do lead up pretty quickly to the ending of the match, which is one of the better spots of the night, actually.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of that finish, we're brawling, we're in and out of the ring. I forget if it's in this match or in the next one, but there's some point that Dream and Heenan are discussing about why they even bothered setting the ring up, because the wrestlers just keep passing through it as the show goes along. But yeah, as you alluded to, they're coming back into the ring. DDP kicks the ropes up into Duggan's sensitive nether regions to paralyze him and set him up for the diamond cutter and the 1, 2, 3 and the finish. For the record, we're going to check our count here. There are exactly 0 taped fist punches in this taped fist match. There is some afterwards, however, as Thief and sore loser Hacksaw Jim Duggan then wraps his fists up and attacks DDP after the bell. So one of the only true faces that have been on the card up to this point is now attacking the person who beat him after the match, for the record at home. While we're counting things, Matt, what's the Eric Bischoff count at this point?
We did have our 4th check of the Eric Bischoff status at some point.
Still haven't found him.
Nope, he's still on the lam. We're not 100% sure. We do have our best guys on it, but so far, nothing.
Yeah. Speaking of our best guys, we're going to bounce to the back to Mean Gene interviewing that little twerp Jimmy Hart, which isn't really a fair thing to call him. He is the third most death-defying luchador of the night so far. Jimmy Hart with the Giant, soon to be, well, not soon to be, but eventually to be the Big Show that we all know and love, but just the Giant at this point. And his mentor, the Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan. He's not a person I know a ton about. Joe, you kind of alluded to this is a, or you guys had already alluded to, like this is a stable that's built to bring in monsters to go cause trouble, and apparently they succeeded because they have the Giant, and the Giant has the title, and as he lets everybody know, he came to claim his birthright and he ended Hulkamania. So we're not going to see any Hulk Hogan tonight because Giant has ended that story. The Horsemen, we talk about, there's this ongoing feud between the Horsemen and the Dungeon of Doom. Gene alludes to the strategy that the Horsemen are probably going to employ, which honestly any sane person would employ, of don't let the Giant into the ring. For the love of God, he's 7 feet tall and he'll eat us. Just beat up this short old man, Kevin Sullivan, and call it a day. Sullivan tries really hard to convince us. This is his hometown. He's fighting on his own turf. He's not the weak link of the team, even though he very obviously is. I don't know what the writing on Kevin Sullivan's head is about, but I think it does a decent job of establishing. Well, I don't know if I'd even go that far of establishing who this team is or what they're about, because I had to do a lot of reading on my own to figure it out. But I don't know. What do you guys think of this interview segment, Joe?
Oh, I love that, Joe.
So first of all, I mean, I understand there's some history here between Gene and Jimmy, but I'm really offended anytime anybody picks on Jimmy Hart, because, man, there is not a manager that loves his guys any more than Jimmy Hart does.
No,
Jimmy will do anything for his guys. You just watched him shimmy up that pole. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, every once in a while, he hits somebody with a megaphone or something, but I mean, come on, he just loves his guys, baby. He just knows that, man, they're just the best.
Mm-hmm. Matt, sorry, I cut you off. What were you?
Oh, you're all good. I know I wrote in my notes that it was really cool to see the Giant here, but I wrote Paul White in my notes to see him young again, because we live in an era where he's had 2 hip replacements and a knee replacement. His legs are bowed out, but to remember the guy he was back then, like he's the guy who Hulk Hogan at one point called, and because he did some top rope drop kick, if I remember correctly. Hogan called him, and from the story I heard, he went back to his hotel room and had a message to call Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan basically told him straight up, "If I ever see you do a drop kick again, I will never wrestle you again," and hung up on him. So the Giant at this point is still that freak athlete, because the business hasn't. I guess I had the pleasure of listening to a long podcast where he was talking, and at this point, he didn't know how to balance, his athleticism with the wrestling big man persona. Mm-hmm. So he was still trying to live in both worlds before they finally settled him down and turned him into the monster he eventually became. So it was really cool for me to see a young Paul White in just his peak athletic prime. As for the segment itself, I'm with you. They worked really hard. I wrote in my notes, they're trying really hard to put Taskmaster over. And I'm like, I don't understand Taskmaster. I don't remember Taskmaster. And honestly, he's weird like that. Like you alluded to the weird paint. I thought that was weird from the time this interview went all the way through their match. He's weird.
Yeah, he's supposed to be kind of like a cult leader figure. I'm not sure how, other than to make him look, kind of scary and ominous. I'm not sure how the face paint actually factors into that, but that's very much what his character throughout his career, when he's not just being an amateur wrestler in the varsity league. That's very much what his character is. He is the charismatic cult leader who brainwashes the guys and gets them to go do his dirty work for him.
Yeah,
I see. Now it makes sense. Kevin Sullivan is Charlie Manson, and the Giant is Squeaky Frome. I get it now.
Yes.
Okay,
and then
clear.
I guess
Moving on.
I was going to say before we leave, for the Benoit and Arn portion of this, I wrote down in my notes. I wrote down a header so I'd remember Benoit and Arn, and then I really didn't write anything because their portion of the promo to me felt very, very flat. Like, I don't know. It didn't have a whole lot of substance. And, Chris was very strange on the microphone. But, yeah, I just wanted to touch base on that because I only talked about half of the segment. So,
right. Yeah. And to take a second to step back and be serious for a second. We've been having a good time. But obviously, there's a Canadian elephant in the room when it comes to Mr. Benoit. I think our philosophy on the show is going to be, for the most part, to essentially judge the art, not the artist. What he did obviously is deplorable. We don't endorse any of that, obviously. And we understand that it's going to be uncomfortable from time to time when he's here. But as we also understand it, he's a part of the show. He's going to remain a part of the show for a long time. It's going to be difficult to just talk around him. And from everything that you hear from any of the people that knew Chris Benoit, the man that did those deplorable things is not the man that is here in WCW at this time. So we're going to probably not dwell on it, but we understand it, and we're just going to try to be as sensitive as we can. But anyways, as you alluded to, Matt, the other half of this segment, Lee Marshall is interviewing two of the other horsemen, Chris Benoit and Arn Anderson. They're facing the Dungeon of Doom members because if they win in this tag match, then Flair gets a world title match on the following Nitro. We start with heels supporting Team WCW, which is a little strange. It doesn't flow, but you kind of get it because this is their company too, and these outsiders are like another level of heel beyond them. But yeah, Arn goes into a bit about how everyone in town has apparently been telling him that Sullivan's gonna kick their butt because he offered his hand and pulled back a nub, betrayed him, but that's the way of the world. And if Giant comes in the ring, he's gonna break him in half, so he's just 3'6". Benoit is silent but violent, and I think, like you said, he's kind of just stringing some stuff together here. I don't think he maybe had a whole plan on what he was going to talk about when he got in there. He's just rattling off some promo stuff. I think this section's pretty forgettable. As Matt alluded to, we'll just go ahead and move along to a very unforgettable match, the 4-man dog collar match, Public Enemy versus the Nasty Boys. And this match is EC dub as it gets. Oh, sorry. What's our count at, Matt? 5?
We've hit 5 wears Eric Bischoff's during the built lead up to the entrances for this match.
Gotcha. Okay. It's unclear who is the face and who is the heel in this match, as it is through, honestly, a lot of parts of this show. The crowd dances with the Nasty Boys theme song, which is a certified banger, if you ask me. But there's also a
Jimmy Hart tune.
Yes. Underappreciated skill of the Mouth of the South. He is a very talented musician.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know until earlier when I was doing research for the show that Jimmy Hart also was the one that did the flip on DDP's music from Nirvana that made it not copyrightable. So he's really got a lot of talent that is underappreciated in the business.
I would say so. Unclear, like I said, who's the bad guy, who's the good guy in this match. But once we all get to the ring and we all get chained together, an ECW style brawl that's just missing the Philly ballroom in the background breaks out.
One thing that I wanted to note here too is during the entrances for this match, I wrote it down several times. The commentators were hyping that all 4 men would be tied together with dog collars and chains, but when we actually get to the match starting, only 2 of the men are tied together separately. I thought it was going to be way more chaotic if you tied all 4 of them in the middle. So I was a little.
I don't know if that would make it better or worse.
I think it would make it unmanageable, is what it would do.
Because I'll be honest, I was really confused when they're hyping that because I had no idea how that would work, having all 4 people tied together. But it's neither here nor there.
Plus, if all 4 of them were attached together, we wouldn't get the technological innovation that we see in this match, which is the use of the split screen, which, believe it or not, this is like kind of a big deal. Bischoff even talks about it in 83 Weeks, just in terms of like, hey, this was a cool thing that we could do, but it looks bad. And they know that it looks bad. I mean, really, the problem with it is that on the screen, like, this much of it, like, here's one vision, the top half of the screen is totally not wasted, you've got the CGI shark, but you don't have any action going on up there. I know I think we all kind of probably have a note in our notes about how it's an interesting idea. Eventually it will work, but it's just not executed well in this match.
I was gonna say my notes specifically say split screen ? This is not it, because it was painful to follow anything that was going on when the screen was split.
Yeah, no, they needed. I mean, let's be fair. They needed HD, so they had enough screen real estate to actually use the 4:3 ratios that they were trying to pair up.
Right. Yeah. And the Nasties and Public Enemy, I mean, they are different people, obviously, but body size, they're similar. I think this would work better if you had like a Dudley Boys versus the Hardy Boys or something, where there are clear visual differences between the 2 teams. We don't have that. What we do have is Knobs and Grunge fighting up the ramp to the beach set. Sags hitting people with inflatable sharks. Never seen an inflatable shark spot before.
I did have to ask my son, my oldest son Caleb, when he came over and heard me laughing, if he knew whether that was left shark or right shark.
Yeah, and then like I know I wrote in my notes, inflatable shark as a weapon is sure a choice, because I couldn't imagine a world where you could swing an inflatable shark hard enough to hurt somebody. And I guess
that's why you are not a nasty boy.
That's true. And then I guess the other part that we've already kind of got past at this point is there was a sequence where I'm not good with their names, but they had trash can lids, and they were some of the absolute weakest trash can lid shot I've ever seen. Like, we're talking, they're hitting them with pillows. They're coming down with these trash can lids so light. It was almost kind of humorous to me how unrealistic those trash can lid shots were.
It's all right. They're saving the carnage for later.
Yeah. I was impressed, though. The fans were really into it, even when it was absolutely lame and absolutely just impossible to believe. Like, the fans popped pretty hard for an inflatable shark as a weapon, which I don't know. I guess it's entertainment, so it works.
It looks funny. I laughed. So yeah. And so all of this is then contrasted a moment later as Brian Knobs starts just wailing on Johnny Grunge with a chair like he owed him some money, trying to cave in his skull. I don't know if somebody was getting a receipt at that point or what was going on, but like, it's not one shot. He hits him with it, takes him to the ground, and then just starts wailing on him on the ground with the chair.
Yeah, it was pretty intense in that spot. There was also, I think, sometime around there, I think it was somewhere between the inflatable shark and there, you actually had like a actual pile driver onto the concrete in the entrance ramp, which is pretty hard for that period of time. I know I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting a counter when they went into it, and then they hit it pretty clean, obviously, but it was still kind of a surprise to me.
Yeah, Joe, what do you think about this brawl up on the up in the beach set?
So if you didn't know that ECW existed at the time, which to be fair, if I had been watching, I wouldn't have. This is kind of ahead of its time in a lot of ways. Like, this is another one of those things that, man, you're just not seeing this from anybody else in WCW. I especially appreciated, in addition to, inflatable shark violence, and just savage chair shots, grabbing the surfboard off of the set and using it as a weapon, which I think that was the thing the announcers put over more than anything in the whole match, maybe up until like the very last spot. But the thing that they kind of just don't even mention is there's a pretty nasty looking bulldog which one of the Public Enemy guys was it? I've got it in my notes. Johnny Grunge just absolutely lays Brian Knobbs out on a setup folding chair with a bulldog that yeah, like, I mean, it probably was a lot safer spot than it looked like it was, but man, if you were seeing that for the first time in 1996, you thought somebody was dead.
And contrast that with immediately before this, we have the tape fist thing going on. So that's a whiplash transition if I ever saw one. Speaking of whiplash transitions, we're heading up the ramp now as Dusty drops what also might have been one of the best lines of the night, where he says, "I think it's illegal to walk your dog on the beach in Florida." And it's right around this time that the greatest and possibly most dangerous thing in the entire show, any wrestler included, enters, which is the invincible tables enter the chat.
I was going to say, I have it written in my notes in big bold letters. Oh boy, this table has gone into business for itself. Like, that table takes not one, not two, but 3 different bumps without breaking. And earlier in this match, we had the first table that somebody went through with just a easy, pretty simple shoulder block. And then this table, you got people bouncing off top rope spots and not breaking the table. I mean, that was one of the roughest tables not breaking I've ever watched. Like, I hurt just watching it as a 40-year-old fan of the product. Like, that had to hurt.
Yeah. I think the first one, I think it's Rocco, or no, it's Sags, tries to go through the table the long way, which is just not how you do that. And so that one you can kind of figure like, okay, they just didn't do that right. But yeah, as you said, when they get to be clear, that table does get broken. There's a spot where Rocco comes off the guardrail to put somebody through it at one point. But then we get to the ring, we get another table out, and that one wasn't having any of it.
Yeah.
Joe, what do you think about? You were the one that was introducing me to the what is it, wrestling botches or whatever.
Botchamania.
Yeah.
God, yes.
Yeah.
That I think that is the originator of I Am the Table.
This was the I Am the Table for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Poor Rocco. He just
got the worst of it for sure.
To death on this table. I'm gonna spoil my end rating of the match, and I'm just gonna say that this match got an extra star from me just because Rocco was such an MVP for taking all of the punishment from that table.
Well earned, I would say. It's right around this point. Oh, go ahead, man.
Oh no, you're fine. I'll let you move. I was going to point out that the several times the table fails to break towards the end of the match really seemed to kill the heat for the match, because I had in my notes that after that the fans kind of died and they didn't give a crap about the ending. Like, it was painful.
Yeah. So just before this, as we said, Public Enemy and the Nasty Boys try something different and go wrestle in the ring for a while. Sags gets another table because he hasn't learned his lesson. Rocco tries to drive him through it, but Sags moves and Rocco just kind of bounces off. Sags then wraps his fist in the chain, tries to come down, also just bounces off. And then we head to the finish, which I actually think was kind of cool, honestly, because you got Knobbs basically hanging Grunge over the top rope by his chain. And at that point, Sags throws Rock into the chain, so he gets kind of just clotheslined by it. I thought it was pretty creative. The chains fall off of somebody at some point in it, which is not optimal. But I honestly, I was impressed. For what a what Jim Cornette would call garbage wrestling match that it was all the way up to this point. That was actually a fairly well orchestrated finish to pull this thing together. What do you think, Matt?
I was gonna say it was creative for sure. I think for me, and I think the crowd was kind of in the same spot, is after all the gratuitous violence and the pain of the tables and everything else that looked way worse than that, it was kind of a weird spot to finish on. Like, you know, if you think about it, if you got whiplash down like that, yeah, you'd probably be out for the count. But in professional wrestling, like it was cool. I'm not going to sell it short. It was innovative. I just don't know if it was the kind of finish the match ended. I actually wrote kind of a lame finish, but you know, I guess I might be in a different class of my own on that one, but I thought it was kind of lame.
So you kind of spoiled yours, but what's your final thoughts on this match?
So I think that the finish gets hurt by two things. I mean, it's super creative. It's completely out of left field. I had no idea what was coming. It does get hurt by the fact that you could tell that those tables hurt more than this thing did. Because of the fact that they didn't break. I think that if the tables had broken, I think that this would have gotten a lot better reaction from the crowd. Because I think the immersion was broken when the tables weren't.
For sure.
But the other thing that really hurts it is that Rocco takes this sick looking bump from this chain, gets pinned, and then basically just completely no-sells it to keep fighting the Nasty Boys. And he finally then does put Sags through the table.
Yeah, that was my very next note, was way to no-sell the finish.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's just kind of like the pinfall was just a quick breather break. The pinfall's the rest hold in the middle of the street fight, really.
Yeah, it's like this would have been like 1.5 stars, I think. If it weren't for the fact that like I said, Rocco is maybe the MVP, not quite of the night, but like of the middle of the card, I think, just for taking those ridiculous bumps and keeping going through the finish of the match. Like I think he's
the Iron Man for sure.
Yeah,
he's the Iron Man for sure. The other Iron Man of the whole pay-per-view is Mean Gene Okerlund, because every interstitial segment has Gene. What's our Bischoff count at?
We're up to 6. Right after the match finish, we do have a brief return to, where is Eric Bischoff?
I mean, maybe we'll find Hoffa first. We're not sure. But for now, we're going to go back and talk to Gene, who is interviewing himself. Strange why we think this needs to happen. He's in the back. He talks about how he has security now, so the outsiders can't mess with him, but he sets up that he won't have that security when the main event starts. So I don't know, I guess they're getting paid by the hour. Mostly this is just Gene hyping how tense things are some more. Overall, guys, this is very much a WCW keep resetting the narrative, keep pushing a narrative through the show type of thing. Do you think we're overdoing it in this show? Or do you think, I mean, you've got to keep it so that people can come in and out. It's a 3-hour show. What are your thoughts on this, guys?
Well, I mean, I just want to give a shout out to one of my favorite lines of the night. I didn't write down who said it, but at one point when commentary was talking back and forth with me and Gene, somebody uttered the line, "Electricity so thick you could cut it with a knife." I don't believe that's how electricity works, but I know what they were going for.
You've never seen it that thick before. I mean,
but to your question, I guess in my personal opinion, between commentary during matches, constantly referring to who's the third person, or as the running joke of the night, where's Eric Bischoff, to having multiple segments, like we still have segments to come where Mean Gene's in the back. I think they might. I think they knew what they had in the main event. I think they may have gone too far in trying to build the through line through the show, where it got to the point where towards the end, I was hyped for the main event. I was also sick to death of hearing them talk about it.
Yeah. This is a WCW pet peeve of mine. It was from the moment that I started watching the product to the end. And to be fair, WCW is not the only wrestling company that has this issue of promoting the main event to the detriment of most other things happening on the card. I think that the general idea of updating people on what's going on regarding the main event is a very good one because of the fact that they've done a good job of building the mystery in the build up to everything. They needed to dial it back just a little bit. This segment with Gene, this could have been Tony saying, "I just got word that Gene's been trying to get in to talk to Hall and Nash and he can't do it."
Right. Although we would have missed out on Heenan trying to convince Gene to go bribe the cops to let him get back there. But be that as it may, let's move on to the next match. We've got the Disco Inferno, who I legitimately forgot existed until his theme song hit on this show, and then marked out like you wouldn't believe.
I was gonna say, I can't believe you forgot about Disco.
I'm as embarrassed as anyone. Versus the Iceman, Dean Malenko, for the Cruiserweight title. Disco comes out to the ring first, looking fabulous in his orange jumpsuit. Says to everybody in the arena came to see him dance. And after he's beat Mr. Personality, everybody's invited to his dance party. And then Malenko comes out and looks mad because he's got like terminal resting bitch face. And slaps the taste out of Disco's mouth before the match bell even rings. And I wrote, and then the mugging starts, because when I watched it the first time behind the scenes, I watched the show once just to watch the show, and then I watched it again to take some notes on it. And the first time I watched it, I legitimately got to the end of this and thought, Jesus, this was just a squash match. Like, this was just Dean Malenko coming out to squash Disco Inferno. And like in my head, all I remember is like a couple of maybe comeback hope spots, and that's it. And it's just Dean Malenko running a clinic on Disco the whole time through. And it's not that that's not what happened, but Disco has offense in this match. He fights back. He's got some segments that string some moves together. This is honestly, by a lot of people, considered one of the Disco Inferno's best matches. It just gets lost under the fact that Dean Malenko is such a technician in the ring. And I mean, when you call him a man of 1,000 holds, that is not an exaggeration. That is a man who, when he looks at you, knows how he's going to make you tap out at any given point in time. And he's wrestling circles around Disco, and he just makes it very obvious that if this was real and he was just in a ring with a guy and wanted to stretch him, he could just finish this at any point. He's not doing it in like a heel, oh, I'm toying with you kind of way, but it's just the way it comes off to me. It's like a long, drawn out squash match. What do you guys think?
I guess I'll jump in first. The entire time I watched it, I was with you for the first probably half the match. Malenko is just beating the holy hell out of him. Every time you think, oh, this is where Disco is going to get that turning of the tide and get going, Malenko just got back on top of him and was absolutely beating him senseless. And there's two things that came up mid-match that I want to mention. One, we did get a update, number 7. Someone asked, is Eric here yet? So we do have one more is Eric Bischoff here segment. Another thing is, after, I don't remember if it was Disco's first comeback or second comeback, commentary mentions, boy, he really took the breath out of it, or I don't remember the setup for it. Basically, it led to an unexpected Blazing Saddles reference, talking about farting around a campfire. I didn't see that coming. I actually wrote it in big letters on my thing. Why are we referencing Blazing Saddles when we're getting the breath taken out of us? I don't know, but it was pretty funny. But yeah, no, that whole time, like, Malenko is just absolutely giving him the business. And
it's a toss-up between the Blazing Saddles and just Dusty trying to say the word thwart.
That's what it was. Dusty tries to say thwart, and they say, yes. Are you saying fart? This isn't Blazing Saddles. I remember how they got into it now.
Yeah. Dusty has another really good line in this match. He's talking about they're talking about Dean Malenko as the man of 1,000 holds, and Dusty says he knows all the holds, even the ones I call. He can understand them. It's like, and it's the he can understand them that just really sells the whole thing, because it's like, man, if Dean can understand the things that Dusty is calling, he must really know all the holds. But yeah, this is very much a Dean Malenko showcase. We want to make sure that you know that Dean Malenko at this point in time is arguably the best technical wrestler in the world. And we also want you to know that this is what happens when you have the temerity to come out during the middle of a Dean Malenko match with a gold record and try to dance in the ring, because that was the build up to this match.
Fair enough. Yeah, and eventually, maybe blessedly, as we go along, Disco does have some comeback spots. I don't want to make it sound completely one-sided. The offense really is fairly even in terms of who's on top at various times. It's just that Malenko is doing these intricate holds while Disco's throwing punches and doing neck breakers and stuff out there. But eventually, blissfully, Dean decides he's done enough work, gets Disco over into the Texas Cloverleaf and puts him away. And I think really still this it was not a bad match per se. It is a little weird with Disco Inferno working as the face in this one. But then again, kind of this whole show, there's a lot of who's the face as you're going along. But I mean, in terms of what you were saying, Joe, of hey, let's put Malenko over as just this nightmare in the ring, I don't think you could do it a whole lot better.
Yeah. I do think it's important not to sell Disco short. This is a guy who's really green at this point. And while it is, as you said, very, very clear and obvious that Dean can absolutely wrestle circles around him at the drop of a hat, I really think he holds his own pretty well. I think Disco's a really good comedy heel. I think it's a little bit of a shame that they don't do more stuff like this with him, where they put him with somebody who can just make him look good.
I wrote myself a reminder to make sure to give Disco his flowers here, because I didn't think Disco, I don't have fond memories of Disco's wrestling ability, but he played his part really well in this match. He made Dean look like $1 million, and when it was time for him to get his stuff in, while his offense was simple, it was really well executed. I left with a little bit more of a shine for Disco. I was a little disappointed. To me, the crowd was really flat during the entire match, probably because the result was pretty much never in question. Ultimately, for me, it falls, at about a 3.5 stars, just because it was such a wrestling clinic put on by Dean Malenko. You lose a little bit because they couldn't get the crowd on their side, and it was a little one-sided, but compared to some of the other matches this night, this was far and away the best wrestling match for technical old school mat wrestling. It may fall a little bit short of Rey and Psychosis just on some basis for what the match was, but it was still a very good match.
Yeah, this is 3 stars, and for Disco it's at least 4.
Right. Yeah.
By his
and it has a built-in story to it. It's even got, Disco's fatal flaw where he's, got his vanity, which I'm not making a joke. It's not subtle storytelling. It's over the top, but it does create a story of this guy that would be really good if he could just be serious. And so from this technical exhibition, we'll move along to the next match, featuring, I know I have 1,000 fond memories of Joe the Desperado Gomez, just like all of you. Matt, you go first. What's your favorite Desperado Gomez match moment?
Let's see. I don't know. It
It's
must have
hard
been
to
in this
believe he
match.
can't come up with something with a career as illustrious.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, obviously. Joe, the Desperado Gomez versus the first horseman of the evening, Steve Mongo McMichael, who comes out to the ring. His entrance filmed via crab cam.
I wrote that down. I wanted to write that down. I wrote, and I quote, "Cab camera. This is really interesting. Don't forget to mention the crab camera," because I didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden, there's these little plastic crab claws on screen. I'm like, what the hell? And then the camera's just panning right along with it. And I'm like, if you're going to go for it, go for it. And that's what production did right there.
Bash at the beach, baby. Coming
I'm
out
really
with
disappointed
Deborah.
that we didn't get a whole crab cam match. Not really.
I mean, it was going on in the split screen and the street fight. You just couldn't see the claws because they were so small. Mongo's coming out to the ring with his wife Deborah and Pepe the poodle. This is coming off of a betrayal. McMichael turning on his good friend Gomez. Real life friends, actually, these two. And Gomez, I'm having a little fun at his expense, but Bischoff actually talks about how he did wrestling and he's an entrepreneur. He's launched a bunch of very successful businesses in his time. This match is Mongo McMichael's third match ever, and that is very apparent as you go along. Yeah, this is not a good match. You can see that from the start. He comes out of the gate hot. Gomez comes back at him, but ends up kind of potatoing him with a chop on the lip that like busts him open. It's just, it's not smooth. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's people that are not ready to be wrestling. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Gomez is fine. But, they're not ready to be on a pay-per-view show in any case.
And the real problem starts, we're about halfway through the match at this point. You can tell both of them are absolutely blown. The botches start left and right the second they both get run out of air. And, what was kind of a meh match turns into gosh, I hope these guys can get home without hurting each other.
Yeah. And it's the thing that is really unfortunate is you can tell that Mongo was a defensive lineman and not an offensive lineman when he played football, because his footwork is so bad. Every time he tries to do a move, all of his footwork is straight ahead into the guy that he's trying to do the move on. There's never any any setting a wide base like you would expect from a guy when, he goes to rear back for a big overhand punch or to pick somebody up for a slam. And they haven't done him any favors by putting him on pay-per-view with a guy who is almost as green as he is in his third match ever with, I'm gonna get, I don't know for sure. I didn't do the research to find out. I'm gonna guess that Mongo has had about 8 weeks of training at this point.
Yeah, this is a whole new arena for him, and he's just kind of not ready. That being said, there is one pretty funny spot. Gomez goes for like a jawbreaker, a stone cold stunner almost kind of maneuver, and Mongo kind of sells it, like he pops up to his feet and then just kind of timbers over backwards onto the ground. Very, very The Rock taking the stunner esque. But we head to the finish, and the finish like just goes to a whole new level of sloppy at this point. They clearly decide it's time to go home and then realize they're standing in the wrong position by the ropes. So they just kind of switch and then whip Gomez over into the ropes. Mongo follows him. It's supposed to be the sunset flip roll up, but Mongo just kind of falls on him. He gets up. They do a tombstone pile driver, which is, again, like, hold your breath. But we get through it safe. We get the 1, 2, 3. And we finish up this match that is a -1/2 star in the Dave Meltzer Wrestling Observer rankings. And I think, unfortunately, kind of deserved.
Yeah, I wrote down around my ratings for this. It was just forgetful. It was filler material. They had time then they didn't have matches for. And unfortunately, they put two guys in it who just weren't ready for the big time. And negative a half star seems maybe a bit too nice for what that match was.
Yeah, I had it at a positive half star, and that's giving them credit for the fact that neither one of them should have been in the position that they were in. I think that if they had been in separate matches, each with someone to kind of lead them through, I think that we might have had something positive. Or even if this had been a tag match where each guy was paired with a veteran partner, we might have had something workable here. But boy, I mean, when the offensive highlight of the match is a mule kick,
a low blow clearly in front of the referee.
Yes, and we do get another good Dusty line because he mule kicked him in the groin.
Yeah, I also don't want to forget to put over the biggest moment of the night. We've actually gone an entire match without asking, is Eric Bischoff okay?
Oh man,
I know. Sit down. We've forgotten about Eric Bischoff for at least one match.
The announcers fell asleep too.
The announcers might have forgotten, but we certainly haven't. But in the meantime, we're going to roll on and we're going to go to another horseman. We're going to go to the back and talk to Mean Gene as he's having an interview with the Nature Boy, along with his two valets, Miss Elizabeth and Woman.
Yeah.
Again, another weird one where you've got a heel and he's kind of having to be like, yeah, but go WCW. But it's Flair, so he still stops to jab at Savage about how he has Miss Elizabeth and
all of his money.
Never getting her back, brother.
And La Cucaracha. Don't forget La Cucaracha.
Lord.
I tried.
La Cucaracha.
So we continue on. Flair sets up that Mongo's win is going to be number 1. Flair winning the U.S. title is going to be number 2. Then Arn and Benoit will be 3 to get him to his title shot the next night. And then, the La Cucaracha starts. I think, honestly, the highlight of this promo is actually Gene's comedy work with Woman in the background as this is going on. Who knew the man had comedy chops like this? Because he and Woman are doing some classic vaudeville stuff in the background there.
Woman is the most valuable valet of this segment.
Yes.
I was going to say, I don't think I could roll my eyes any harder. At the bottom of my notes for this promo, which really weren't all that deep, I wrote cringe, because it was cringe from the moment Flair opened his mouth until I think it ended on another Gene and Woman, let's go get a hotel after this moment. And
you're just jealous because they didn't invite you to their pole vaulting competition.
Yeah, gotta be it.
That segues into the next match. Oh, well, we got to check.
Right, we hit number 8. Right after that, we have returned and remembered that Eric Bischoff is, in fact, still missing.
Okay, good. Thank you for that update.
Yep.
Who's not missing in the ring? We have Conan and Ric Flair. Again, wanted to highlight just the level of star that Conan is coming into this in Mexico. Also worth noting, he is the longest U.S. title holder of the Monday Night Wars era. Unfortunately, that's about to end. But Conan, I mean, he's a much different wrestler at this point in time than just the Odalea, Arriba La Raza, Wolfpack years Conan. Meanwhile, Flair comes out profiling in his pink robe. We all know what it looks like. I don't need to describe it. You've seen it a million times. I did think it was a little odd. Flair feels like he's slumming it in this match with the U.S. title. But again, Conan being the star that he is, you got to give it some kind of stakes, I guess, to get them together. We start out with some typical Flair, posturing stuff. The woo, rub the hair, don't lock up, flirting around. But it becomes very obvious at the beginning Conan is not going to have any of that. Eventually leading up to him just almost slapping Flair out of his damn boots and launching into the start of many woman shrieks from the outside of the ring. Matt, I considered putting in a sound clip on the soundboard of just Rick, but you'll have to fill it in for yourself.
Yeah, my first note for this match is, oh boy, woman is annoying, because every time anything happened, it was Rick.
She's vocal.
Rough.
There's no doubt about it. But we don't silence women on this podcast, so let's be clear. Yep. For the most part, this match is kind of your standard Flair stuff, but that's like saying this is your standard Maserati. Ric Flair is a legend. Even when he's phoning it in, he's doing it better than most of the people on the roster. And the thing I kind of wanted to make note of is just the little things that he does right. I'm a big fan of some of the, this art that's kind of lost in the modern era of just doing like the little bitty stuff that like even the average fan might not entirely catch, but that like is just adds that little bit of polish. And the one thing that I noted is that, obviously at this point in time in well, maybe not obviously, given if you're a modern wrestling fan, but at this point in time, punching with a closed fist is illegal. That is grounds for disqualification. And so you will note at one point, he's got Konnan tied up and he's going to go for his punch him in the bridge of the nose spot. But you will notice he pivots his body between himself and the referee before he does that spot. And it's just that little stuff, I think, that really separates Rick from the rest of the roster and maybe the rest of wrestling, bar none. Joe, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. This is Ric Flair's, well, this is one of Ric Flair's three greatest strengths. One is that he's probably the best promo in the history of wrestling. The second is that he absolutely knows what his strengths and weaknesses are, and he is going to accentuate his strengths, and he is going to absolutely hide his weaknesses. There's a reason that we have what is known as the standard Ric Flair match, and you watch it every time, and it's always compelling. But yeah, it's knowing all of the little things, whether it's, like you said, turning your body so the ref can't see you as you punch a guy in the bridge of the nose, or waiting until the ref comes in to squeeze himself between you to break you up in the corner and you poke him in the eye. Actually making sure that you do something to block the referee's vision when you mule kick somebody.
Right. Yeah. You've got an immediate contrast there. And then you put that against like taking a body drop into the freaking sky, like Konnan delivers to him, and then landing on his side, which I Flair's the only one I see that takes it that way, but he always does, and he's clearly fine. But I mean, like, again, it's just a performance that is like a day. For most wrestlers, this is a master performance. For Rick, this is a Tuesday. Konnan at one point, things start to change when Konnan clotheslines Rick to the outside. The valets try to help get Rick back on his feet, and then Konnan follows up that on his threat from earlier in the night by trying to splash Flair and almost wiping out Miss Elizabeth in the process. But this is where things sort of pivot, and the valets start to kind of steal the spotlight of this match as it goes along. Matt, do you think that they were too involved enough to make the story happen? Where's your head at on this one?
So honestly, I think they were a little bit too involved. I mean, I know we haven't gotten to the go home for the match yet, but at this point it becomes more about the valets than the two people in the ring. We limp to the finish, which I'm sure you were going to talk about, but I'll just bring it in now, is that we go for the longest ref distraction ever, where Miss Elizabeth gets on the ring step, or on the ring apron, gets the referee over. Woman gets up on the other side and takes her shoe off. And then I don't know who got there early, if it was the valets who got there early or if it was Flair and Konnan getting there late. But this drags on for what felt like, to me, probably 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe, before Konnan and Rick get over to that side of the ring, hit the spot to get Konnan in position to eat the heel of her shoe, and go towards the finish. And this is one of those situations where it's hard to suspend disbelief, because if you're a ref in a real situation, Ric Flair, that after a couple minutes, you have to know that somebody is distracting you on purpose. And it was just hard for me to get past how that match limped to a finish.
Right. And particularly given that earlier in the match, you had a much better interference and probably could have been a better finish as woman delivers a kick to the junk on Conan that, like, I think all of us of the male persuasion could feel watching that. And even the commentators are even like, oh man, like they're losing it and marking out over it. If she's really good at what she did, maybe she didn't actually hurt him, but it looked like she was kicking a 60-yard field goal on the poor guy. All of that contrasted with her just sort of gently grazing Conan's temple with the heel on her shoe. So, maybe maybe that's another one of those little details where Flair is like, well, I better put my feet up on the ropes for the 1, 2, 3 on this one just to kind of sell it and take it home. Yeah. Okay, maybe I'm being generous. But in any case, Conan takes the L. Rick is the U.S. champion. And if his men can do their business in the next match coming up, he could be a double champion after Monday Nitro. But final looks on this match, Joe. What do you think? What's your takeaways?
So my biggest note on this match is that it's very unfortunate that we have a 6-month title reign and in a match that just doesn't have any story or build. I'm sure that I'm guessing that this was actually really shocking when it happened because there was no build. Conan was in the middle of a long title reign where the crowd was really warming up to him, and I mean, surely they're not going to push Flair down the card to be the U.S. champion, right? Well, turns out that that's where we're headed. Is we got to give Flair something to do because we have other plans for the main event picture.
And I guess he didn't count on running into a wheeling, dealing, title stealing son of a gun. Clearly, yeah. Matt, what do you want to wrap this up with?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to come in kind of from the other side. I know I talked about it a little bit earlier when we were discussing it before the show, trying to get a feel for how people felt about this match. But, outside of Flair getting in the Flair match, getting all his spots in, the in-between to me felt really disjointed. Like it felt like Conan and Rick didn't have a lot of chemistry. They were struggling to get from moment to moment. The match drug a lot. Woman and Miss Elizabeth hurt more than they helped.
In some cases, literally.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I get the appeal of the Flair match, but the really good Flair matches in my mind, like, later down the road when you get Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair, or you get Ric Flair versus any top-end wrestler, you remember the Flair stuff, but the stuff in between was dynamite too. And this, to me, this match was one of the most disappointing of this card. Honestly, if it weren't for the the tag team dog collar match and Steve Mongo McMichael and Desperado Joe, to me, this would have been the bottom match of the card because it really was not good, in my opinion.
Strong words. Do those strong words have an update on the Eric Bischoff count?
Yeah, there was actually mid-match. There was another check-in to refer to everybody to remind everybody
where he is, Tom.
For the 8th time, Eric Bischoff still not here. We don't know where Eric Bischoff is. He could be dead for all we know.
Could be. Could be floating out in the harbor. Might have got attacked by that CGI shark. But one guy that we do know where he is Mean Gene Okerlund, because we're going to check back in with him. We're in the back, and he is now standing outside the locker room, and he has heard a third person in the locker room with the outsiders. And his voice sounds familiar. It triggers something in Mean Gene's subconscious, almost as if he's interviewed him hundreds of times over the previous decade, but he just can't put his finger on who it might have been.
I got a real kick out of this from Mean Gene sitting there going, it just, it set something off like right here in the back of my mind, but I just can't figure out who that voice is. Like, how thick of a door was this that you can't recognize the voice of the man who's made it famous? Well, listen here, Mean Gene. Like, how do you not recognize the most recognizable voice in the history of wrestling?
Maybe he didn't say brother.
Yeah, it's a brother thing. Really gives it away.
Mm-hmm. Next up on the card, we've got the Horsemen. Arn Anderson and Chris Benoit coming out to face the Dungeon of Doom in that match that we set up earlier.
In the midst of the intros, we do get our 9th. Where is Eric Bischoff of the night? It kind of was out of nowhere. They weren't really talking about it, and then they circled back to, we don't know where Eric Bischoff is. Is he in the building? It was the 9th one. We're not done yet, but that was the 9th one.
Maybe that's who Gene heard in the back. Could also be a voice that sounds
familiar. Hey, no spoilers for things that happened 20.
Sorry. Giant and Sullivan try to hot start this thing in the aisle while the Horsemen are making their way out. But Mongo comes out from the back and just kind of clocks the Giant in the back of the head. So Giant, being the intellectual giant that he is, decides to turn around and chase Mongo into the back so that Arn and Benoit can do the thing that they've been talking about doing to Sullivan the whole show, and take him into the ring and start to pound on him for a while he has no help. Eventually Jimmy makes the Giant come back out to the ring and come out to get on the apron. But at this point, the Horsemen are well into executing their plan. And it's at this point, I mentioned before how much I like the little things. And in this, Arn Anderson is doing a lot of those little things. And just the ability, just the kind of tag team work that, again, is not a part of the wrestling game today. Arn a couple of times, Arn tags Benoit and then immediately drops and gets Sullivan into a leg hold so that Sullivan can't get away to go tag. That is some primo, going back to the Territories era type heel wrestling work that I really, really appreciated. What do you guys think about sort of the opening of this and what kind of the match looked like as it was kicking off?
I mean, I'll give the same set of flowers you gave to Arn. Arn really did a lot of work in the beginning of this match. They did a lot to isolate Taskmaster. They did a great job keeping on the other side. Every time, you had that tropey moment in your mind where you're thinking, oh man, Taskmaster's getting away this time. They pulled something off that was creative to keep him from doing it. There were several times where I thought before the hot tag finally does happen that Taskmaster was going to get away, and then Arn just does something subtle and Taskmaster doesn't get away. Or there were a few times where Benoit just, without a tag, flies into the ring and pulls him back and then goes out and tags in. But they did a really good job on the psychology of trying to keep Taskmaster isolated from the Giant, because unless you chop that Giant down and to half his size, I think it was 3 foot 6 inches. You're really at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, by contrast, in a way that actually kind of, I think, adds to it, you've got Benoit when he comes in, and they're not calling him the Rabid Wolverine yet, but that's kind of the way he is. It feels like a personal issue between Sullivan and Benoit. I think when they tag him in the first time, Benoit just takes him to the mat, and they're just rolling and throwing punches like it's a barroom brawl out there. Joe, what do you think about Benoit's work in this thing?
So this is a continuation of a lot of really good work between Benoit and Sullivan overall. This whole thing comes out of the Four Horsemen and the Dungeon of Doom both decide that we need to get rid of Hulkamania. So they form, literally, and this is the name of their super faction, the Alliance to End Hulkamania. But Sullivan and Benoit the whole time just never really trust each other. Benoit's always, warning the Horsemen that you can't trust Sullivan. And when their alliance finally blows up, Benoit is there telling the Horsemen, see, I told you so, I was right. And this leads up to the Great American Bash, where Sullivan and Benoit have one hell of a brawl in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Just absolutely beat the hell out of each other. Dusty for weeks talks about, I can't believe that they fought in the men's room, baby. They both show up at the next night's Nitro with legit black eyes and like welts on their faces and like just big old knots on their foreheads. Like these two guys really, if they didn't have an issue already at this point, they did about as good a job as you possibly can of selling that they really hated each other.
No doubt about it. Like I was concerned for Sullivan's life at many points during this. Other points in the match, you've got Arn and Sullivan working the ropes, and I was much more concerned for Arn Anderson's life as the Giant just sort of runs by and clotheslines him from the apron, and it looks like he got run over by a Mack truck. But Sullivan doesn't get the tag, and so we go back to the same sort of isolation move. I wanted to make sure to point out that I'm a simple man. It doesn't take a lot to make me happy. All you need is Dusty Rhodes saying the word Horseman, and I'm in, baby. At that point, just keep talking about the Horseman. That's all I need to know. Eventually, the Giant gets sick of it, comes into the ring, and just kind of scares them off. They put him over as being really unstoppable as this is going along. I think they do a good job of that as well. We start to pivot towards the end. The Horsemen try for what looks like a spike pile driver type of move with Benoit up on the turnbuckle and Arn doing the spike part. Sullivan reverses it and goes for like the classic slingshot where you throw the one guy up into the other guy in the turnbuckle, but Arn's not as young as he used to be and his legs kind of give out. But that sets things up for the hot tag. Giant comes in, Horsemen scatter, and this is where things get kind of weird. I don't know, guys. What do you think about the way this thing heads towards the house or goes home?
Oh, so with the benefit of hindsight, this is really good storytelling. Because the Horsemen have done such a good job of working as a unit, really taking it to Sullivan, making sure he absorbs all the punishment. And Benoit makes the fatal mistake of focusing too much on his beef with Sullivan and taking him completely away from the ring, all the way out to the beach set, up to the announcer's booth, leaving Arn by himself with the Giant. And man, I'm sorry, if I'm Arn, when we get to the locker room in the back, I'm like, kid, you ever do that again, you're not a Horseman anymore.
I think I'd just go outside and take the 10 count if I was Arn at that point. Like, that's fine. You win.
Because it's over like that once it gets to Arn and the Giant.
Yes. Yeah, easy night's work for the Paul White for sure. And then I think the really bizarre part happens after that, because the Giant, again, for the second time, apparently forgets he has a partner and just kind of heads to the back. Meanwhile, Benoit and Sullivan are continuing their personal issues on the announce desk. Eventually, Sullivan gets the upper hand and tries to walk away, but Benoit comes off of the stage, takes Sullivan out, drags him down to the ring, and starts just unloading on him until, strangely, Woman ends up coming out from the back to try to talk him down. And okay, again, awkward moment. You've got Nancy and Benoit in the ring. We understand, but
I'm going to be honest. At that point, I had not yet clocked. I had forgotten that Nancy Benoit was Woman, and in the middle of that, it clicked, and I Googled, "Is Nancy Benoit Woman?" And then I went, "Oh, this just got way awkwarder." As she's sitting there trying to calm Chris down so he doesn't do anything bad. I mean, I know it's the benefit of hindsight, but wow, that was awkward.
Well, it kind of doesn't make sense in the story. Like, why is she there? Who cares? Like, she's supposed to be a heel valet with the Horsemen. Why does she care if Benoit beats up Sullivan? It's very confusing. Thankfully, the Giant eventually remembers for the second time he has a partner, comes back to the ring to make the save and delicately cradle Kevin Sullivan over his shoulder like a small babe as they head to the back. We then pivot to the video package, setting up the main event. I think we all commented on how strange the sound design was on this part, or lack thereof.
Yeah, I kind of wondered to myself if somehow they had run afoul of rights, but with Ted Turner owning both TBS and being the promoter for the pay-per-view, it's like, what led to the decision to put weird orchestral music over top of all the audio for the thing, with the intersected fake headlines popping up left and right. It was a bizarre choice.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if it was just the video, but like you can hear the audio just really, really quiet underneath it. Like it's just mixed bad.
It was like you were Mean Gene up against the door listening to the audio of the video.
Yeah, you'd have to talk to, you know, somebody who was working backstage at the company to verify this. I know watching 2 months worth of programming leading up to this, there are some intermittent audio issues where sound cuts out of half of a promo. We start the wrong guy's music, really obviously start the wrong guy's music and turn it off and then turn on the right guy's music when they come out for matches. They're just having some really unfortunate issues with their audio design at this point. I think is the big thing, and I don't know when or if it gets better.
Well, what's going to get better is this show, because we're heading into the main event time, and I think the main question is, Joe, are you ready?
Oh, am I ready?
Matt, are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Then for the 3 of us in attendance and the maybe 6 that are going to watch this on the internet,
let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah, it's funny. In my notes, there is actually a line that says Michael Buffer, hooray, with an exclamation mark, because I was so excited to see Michael Buffer.
I mean, nobody says WCW quite like he does. It's main event time. It's time for the hostile takeover match. The Outsiders come out from the back in their classic, well, not classic yet, but going to be classic black and red gear, but they come out alone. No third man. They make their way to the ring, and our Iron Man of the night, Mean Gene Okerlund, comes out to give them an interview and ask, hey, who's this number 3 man? Where's he at? How come he's not here? To which Hall responds, all you need to know, Scheme Gene, is he's here and he's ready. And Nash says they don't need him to handle these WCW rabble. Team WCW heads to the ring next. Lots of posturing as both team gets into the ring. It's not even immediately obvious. Is this even going to be a wrestling match, or is this going to be a repeat street fight? Will people get hit with inflatable sharks? Only one way to find out. Thankfully, the tag match does break out.
Yeah.
Shortly after, Hall puts a toothpick into Luger's face and gets a slap for his troubles. Things start off pretty quick. Luger gets in his big forearm smash pretty early in the match, and the reason for that becomes apparent very quickly because he ends up out on the apron, tangled up with Kevin Nash. Sting delivers a splash onto Scott Hall into that corner, and suddenly takes Lex Luger out by mistake. Now, this creates an interesting point of story here, because as I was watching it, I was thinking, well, okay, so this kind of probably in the arena, maybe people are thinking Luger's the third guy. This also creates the opportunity that Sting is the third man, which in fact was the backup plan, because as we know, occasionally Mr. Belia has creative differences with the plan. And basically Bischoff said that he was fairly sure that Hogan was sold on the idea of a turn, but until Hogan showed up at the stadium about halfway through the card here, not 100% sure. So if Hogan showed up and said, nah, brother, that doesn't work, Sting was going to be the third man, and he was going to be the one that betrayed WCW. But that's not the case. Everybody here is faithful and on the WCW team, but what do you guys think about how they sort of pulled off the start of this thing? Good. Throw it to Joe first.
This angle in general to this point has just, I mean, it's been superb storytelling all the way through. And this is another kind of going back to the Flair discussion earlier. This is a really good job of doing a little thing that really plants out in people's minds, because they've been, since Luger showed up back in WCW at the very first Nitro, they've been teasing him turning heel the entire time. And I mean, hell,
which, to be fair, Luger is known to do with some regularity.
Yes. I mean, he even joins the Four Horsemen and the Dungeon of Doom to try to end Hulkamania. This is how thoroughly we are doing. Oh, is Luger going to stay on the side of the good guys? And yeah, they gave themselves the perfect opportunity if they were ever going to pull the trigger on that heel turn to do it there. And they did a really good job of capitalizing on something that the audience would bite on.
I was going to say, I went into it like with the benefit of hindsight. I know how big of a deal this was, so it shouldn't have felt like a really big deal. But going into watching that match again, like it had a big fight feel. Like you knew that, I mean, and you could possibly give it to the fact that they've only beat us over the head with it about 10,000 times throughout the night, but I still had that feeling for me. I went into it like on the edge of my seat. I kind of drifted a little bit during the Benoit Giant match because it really wasn't all that exciting. But I will say, just a funny look into when I watched it, my video skipped because I had some internet problems. And when I came back, Luger was gone, and I had no idea why. So I had to rewind back, and I was like, what the hell happened to Lex Luger? And then I saw it, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. I remember that. So, yeah, that was pretty funny because halfway through the match, I was like, they kept focusing on Macho and Sting, and I was like, what the hell happened to Lex Luger? So that's just a little fun behind the scenes of technical problems.
Yeah, he might have been the only worker of the night that had an easier night than the Giant. So it is definitely a blink and you miss it time for him. Because Mr. Luger is going out on a gurney. He is doing the gurney job at this point. At which point, Hall pops out and tries to hit him and ends up getting some heel heat, like for real, like stab you in the parking lot levels of heel heat for that one. But eventually, order is restored and the match gets back rolling in the ring. Now, a 2-on-2, Sting and the Macho Man versus the Outsiders, and already the announcers are apoplectic over like, well, now it's 2-on-2, and if the third man shows up, then it's a handicap against us. But Sting is undaunted. He's going to take it to him. They have a fight. They tag in Savage. Savage cuts Nash off, or Nash cuts Savage off, doing some good quality big man work. There's a really nice spot that I liked where Savage does what eventually will be called the Snake Eyes, or Nash does what eventually will be the Snake Eyes to Savage. And Savage is just kind of like down on his knees in front of the ring, and Nash just kind of casually kicks him over with his boot. Nice little touch there. Which is unfortunately offset by a bad botch later on where Randy doesn't quite get out of the way of an elbow drop and ends up just kind of headbutting Nash in the ribs, which that had to suck for both of them, honestly. But then we get Sting back in and we go into the classic. I mean, I don't know that anybody ever did this better than the Outsiders, but just the heel tag team work of just laying on you and just never giving you an inch, never giving you a chance to get out. One of my favorite was always the abdominal stretch with the little reach behind thing. Like, I mean, they didn't invent it, but maybe they did it better than anybody. Middle of the match, what are you guys' thoughts? Matt, where are you at on this thing?
It has been a really good match to this point. There's a lot of back and forth action. I really enjoyed the Outsiders because, you know, look behind the curtain at me. I was a pretty big Outsiders fan when they were a tag team, so it was good to relive the hits, seeing him do the stretch and having Kevin reaching behind his back and having Scott pull on him and, you know, everything else. They did do a good job of working in a little bit of back and forth and not making it a complete Outsiders romp. I know, if memory serves, Sting was kind of isolated for a while to set up Macho for a hot tag, which, of course, you know, Macho's good at, because if there's one thing Macho's good at, it's going 1,000,000 miles an hour and looking like a crazy person. So that was pretty good. But, you know, overall, they did a really good job carrying the match after they pulled the Get Luger Out of Here card.
I'd say there's probably two things the Macho Man does well in a match like this. One of them is getting tagged in and going a million miles an hour, and the other is being almost more of a liability than a help to his tag team partner, Joe.
That is literally exactly where I was going. Was for as wonderful a job as the Outsiders did of doing the heel, we're going to cut the ring in half and lean on you and not give you a chance to breathe. Macho just makes it even better by at every single possible opportunity to make a terrible decision to jump into the ring to distract the referee and allow them to cheat just a little bit more. He takes it, and it's wonderful because, man, the crowd just builds and builds and builds as this keeps happening over and over again. This is a guy who very clearly has wrestling in his blood. And like Ric Flair, he really gets the little things, and he knows exactly how to push these heels completely over the top.
Right. And I mean, unlike a lot of the times when you're like, why is the face tag team partner on the outside doing this? Is he an idiot? He's screwing this up. With Savage, he's so crazy that you're like, yeah, he probably is just being a kind of a dummy right now and putting his partner in more trouble. I wanted to call out another good spot. Hall does his big like spinning discus punch thing and hits Sting, and I wrote that Sting basically sells it like Glassjaw Joe from Punch Out. Like it's a spit cell and just totally flying through the air like he just got hit with a dumbbell or something. But eventually Sting's not going down, and eventually the frustration starts to settle in. And this was another thing that I really appreciated, because you see it all the time where like the heel gets the short pin, it's 2 3/4, and he gets frustrated, like, he starts slamming the mat and he's pointing at him. For Kevin Nash, this looks like giving the ref an eye roll, and that does more than that big cell ever could. Eventually Sting gets the comeback, and he gets the tag in a way that I really kind of enjoyed, because he gets the tag by doing the Stinger splash on one of the Outsiders in the corner. Savage gets the tag, and as Tony Schiavone puts it, Savage is in, and he's nuts. He unleashes a blistering string of punches and double axe handles, because that's apparently the only move he knows how to do, at least tonight. Looks like the big comeback is coming, but critically, Nash hits a low blow on him. Savage is down. Disaster is here. But oh wait, the crowd goes crazy, because who's coming down the aisle? It's the Hulkster. Hulk Hogan is making his way out to the ring. The crowd's going crazy. 2/3 of the announcers are going crazy. Heenan is busy creating one of the most infamous moments of his career, where he kind of blows this moment by asking, yeah, but whose side is he on? A thing that Hogan will not forgive him for quite a long time. But Schiavone and Dream kind of jump in over top of it and try to cover him. Are you kidding? It's the Hulkster. He's out here. He's going to save the day. Go get him, Hulk. He gets to the ring. He pops in. He rips the shirt. It looks like good is about to triumph. And then Hogan drops the leg on Savage's head. And the crowd goes nuts.
Yeah.
They don't even get a pinfall. The Hall just throws the ref out of the ring. Hogan leg drops him, I think, a couple more times, and then goes for the pin. Hall just counts it. 1, 2, 3. Heenan is vindicated. What have I been saying all these years? In a bit of long-term storytelling that was unintentional, but was actually really brilliant, because this is literally what Bobby the Brain Heenan has been saying about Hulk Hogan, is he's personal, he's selfish, and he's only going to care about himself when it comes down to it. Dream is ripping into him. I hope you love it, kid. You sold your soul to the devil. This is a moment that changes professional wrestling, and that's not hyperbole to say. Guys, your impressions on this as it finally breaks down.
Yeah, I was going to say, this moment in time is something that we'll never be able to relive. This was a moment when the internet wasn't big, and dirt sheets weren't big, and wrestling coverage wasn't big. So nobody knew. Like, you could speculate, it could be Hogan, but nobody knew. Nowadays, you have to go to ungodly levels of secrecy to prevent something like this from happening. So the raw emotion of having Hulkamania turn on the fans that have loved him for 20 years at this, or 10 years at this point, math is hard. It's just insane. Like you can't capture that again. That was lightning in a bottle that we'll never be able to repeat because the internet spoils this stuff now. Like if this had been this year, you'd have known that it was going to be Hogan 2 weeks before the event started. And while the pop would be there, it wouldn't be this nuclear heat that Hogan gets here by just dropping a leg. Obviously it goes on from there, but that is a moment in time that we can't recreate. And it's just going to live in a vacuum for the rest of the time.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things you can say about Hulk Hogan. But this is a situation where he deserves all the credit in the world for recognizing the situation that he was in. He got that his act had worn stale. He didn't want to change it. Like, he could have worn red and yellow forever and gotten less, smaller and smaller pops, but still always popped the crowd. But he was willing to take a chance. And the fact that the WCW audience never really fully bought into Hogan, I think is probably the thing that actually makes this work as well as it does. Because
I was going to say, he's actually caught booze a couple of times before this. Yeah. So you're spot on.
And this, this is easily the loudest pop that he's gotten in ages in WCW when he comes out and it looks like he's coming out to save the day. Like they absolutely could have had him do that and put him right back on top of the mountain as the number one baby face. It probably wouldn't have lasted very long because the fans would have gotten tired of the not Southern wrestling shtick. But by making that flip from he's here to save the day to, oh, he's the villain of the story. I mean, you increased the pop exponentially.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of anything close to it that you would do today, and I think the closest example would be like if Cody turned, like just kind of out of nowhere, and even then, like Cody is probably the closest thing to a Hulkamania Hulk Hogan that there is today, but he's not the intersectional star. Like the Street Fighter movie hasn't come out yet, so he hasn't been in movies yet. Like the average person, the average non-fan, you show them a picture, who's this guy? They're not going to know who, Cody Rhodes is. Everybody knew Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, this would have been this is akin to what it would have been if when WWE had the thought to turn John Cena heel during the Super Cena run, where they did, all the stuff of creating his new theme song, redoing his ring gear, and then chickened out at the last moment. Like, yeah, they turned him heel this year, the last year, and it fell flat. But in that moment, Super Cena was probably bigger than Hulk Hogan was. And if you had found a way to turn him heel that the people didn't see coming, that's probably the only thing in modern wrestling that could have ever touched this pop from Hogan just becoming the bad guy.
Yeah, and it's worth calling out that not all the fans are, I mean, today all the fans are smart to the business, right? Whereas at this point, I think most people know it's not real, but I still think there are, a lot of folks there that, are bought into the kayfabe way more than there is today. Which leads to, as I think you put it eloquently, nuclear heat, because there is garbage flying into the ring. At one point, I don't think they catch it on camera, but at one point a fan tries to get in and Nash has to go level him on the way in. Everything is going crazy as Gene comes out to the ring with the microphone and demands to know what Hulk Hogan is thinking. And Hogan says if he wants him to answer that question, he needs to tell these fans to shut up. And boo, if it was possible to get louder, it gets louder at that point. Hogan says the outsiders are the future of wrestling, the new world order of wrestling, that they come from an organization up north where he made a lot of people rich, that billionaire Ted came and promised him movies, dollars, world caliber matches, but he's bored, brother. He compares the fans to all of the garbage in the ring. He says that big greeting he got on the way down the aisle, all those fans can stick it. Says he and the outsiders are the new world organization. Okay, lost the thread, but so close. But he's talking about organizations earlier in the promo. You see where the wires get crossed. And they're going to change wrestling forever. And candidly, they did. It's not an oversell. And in my opinion, this is just me reading into it as it's going in. That is maybe one of the most authentic Hulk Hogan promos. He has been saving that one up for a while, and there is not a lot of kayfabe in what he's saying there.
Yeah, I know. I was watching it, and like I knew it was coming. I've seen this promo before, but it's been a while, and like I was genuinely impressed with the amount of work that Hulk Hogan was able to do, just flipping that switch and being a genuine asshole. Like I figured it was probably. My memory, like I said, wasn't the clearest. I figured it was probably wishy-washy or worked in some Hulk classics, but man, the vitriol he spewed in that promo, like you could tell he didn't want to do this from a business standpoint. From personally, you could tell he wanted to do it. Like he was on board with it in a way you wouldn't have expected the presented character of Hulk Hogan to be willing to go that far. Like hearing him talk about how the fans are garbage, how he built this industry and how they don't appreciate him enough anymore and how he's not getting enough money, launching into the Hollywood Hulk Hogan stick that'll get born out of this. Like just chef's kiss. It was the best. It was the highlight of the night, and it was just so much fun to watch and relive.
Even his body, like as he's delivering the promo, he's like totally twisting as he's talking. It's like he's wringing the words out of himself as he's delivering them.
Yeah, I mean, really, literally, the only thing wrong with the promo is the organization slip up.
Yeah.
Like, and even that, man, like the raw emotion that he was pouring into it, that actually just kind of almost makes it more believable that you would stumble over your words like that.
Well, and you have to give Terry Bollea the professional credit. He stumbled over and said New World Organization, and he just stuck with it. He didn't backtrack. Yep. He didn't try to cover for his botch. He just kept saying it and figured, whatever, the New World Order thing will stick. This is what I said, and we're going to roll with it.
And it's not like that name has been like around for a while. As Joe alluded to, Larry Zbyszko mentioned it on Nitro this week, and they're like, oh, that sounds pretty good. I guess we'll go with that. That's all. That's where it came from, is all. So, I mean, like, I've never seen anything like it, and I think, Matt, you're spot on. We'll never see anything like this again. It can't be done in the modern wrestling business. And I don't know, honestly, that anything ever had. I think Shivani, it ends with him sounding like a spurned Hulkamaniac, just going home to rip up his posters as he says, Hulk Hogan, you can go to hell.
Oh, he's absolutely the audience surrogate in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he does it. This is, I mean, I think Tony Schiavone for a long time got a lot of undeserved hate. He kind of mailed it in, and he'll admit it. He has his own podcast where he's talked about by the last 6 months of WCW, he didn't want to be there anymore. The only reason that he was still there is because he couldn't afford to leave. But people really just kind of focus in on that period of his career and treat it like he was that guy the whole time. And that's faded away now that he's back and he's working in AEW and clearly actually has a love for the business again. But man, this is a guy that he was really on top of his game at this point.
Yeah.
Like even being in the dark about what the actual final outcome of this match was going to be, he really stepped up to the plate and sold it in a way that I'm not sure very many announcers could have done.
Yeah. And I guess just to reflect back on the fact that we couldn't catch this lightning in a bottle again, the only time in modern history, like we'll put it maybe in the past 10 years, where you've had anything that came close to this level of surprise and this level of reaction was when Edge came back after his retirement at the Royal Rumble a couple of years ago. And WWE had to go to unbelievable lengths. They brought him in a completely blackened out bus. They walked him in a blacked out box into the arena so you couldn't see him. They shoved him in a janitor's closet so he wasn't in with the other wrestlers where he could be seen. There had been a little bit of talk on the internet, on the dirt sheets, that he was going to be back, but the fans didn't know. And when he came back, it wasn't heel, it was face, but it was still an incredible reaction. And it still fell short from just watching Hogan bounce off the ropes and drop that leg drop. Like, you know, it's the closest we've come, and I don't think we'll ever get there again.
It's funny because if you think about the logic or the psychology of the match, the outsiders are basically winning at that point. So what he didn't really change the outcome. He just sort of showed in and spiked the football at the end of it.
You know, he sprinkled a little bit of hope dust out there and then just crushed him.
I mean, he sealed it. He was the closer. He you know, Enter Sandman could have played.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I don't even know what else to say about it. The superlatives fail. So I guess let's go to talking about the overall show and kind of wrap things up and take it home ourselves.
Can we get out of this without a discussion, or just quickly touching on some of the rumored third man candidates?
Oh, I have at it.
So, I mean, yeah, going into the show, the consensus from people who were fans at the time that I was able to dig up stuff from really did seem to be that it was going to be Luger.
Mm-hmm.
Which again makes sense with the storyline that they had been building with him for like 9 months at this point. Obviously Sting was the backup plan. But when you start getting into like the things that the dirt sheets were talking about, like one of the most mentioned names is Mabel, the future Viscera.
Okay. I don't know that would have had the same impact, but
no,
I can see it.
There were people that were pushing the idea that it was going to be Shawn Michaels.
That would have been something.
Which would have been cool. It wouldn't have had the same impact, and the guy had the WWF title around his waist at the time, so seems a little far-fetched. And Davey Boy Smith was a name that got thrown around a lot, which again, like he was under contract with the WWF at the time, and that would have been hard to pull off, on top of the fact that I feel like that would have been the proverbial wet fart. But then the one that made a lot of rounds that actually made some sense is Bret Hart.
Yeah.
Because at the time he wasn't under contract with the WWF. He was taking a hiatus to try and do some stuff in Hollywood. There were some apparently, depending on who you ask, there were some discussions between he and WCW around this time. And like from the standpoint of we're just bringing in guys who are fresh from the WWF to take over, that's a really interesting what if. I don't want to presume what you guys think of the idea, but again, I don't think it's anything that could have had anywhere near the impact of turning Hogan the way they did. But,
reflecting on those names, I don't think the New World Order or this moment in time would have ever ended up where it was if it had been anybody else besides Hulk Hogan. Like this was something that made cultural waves, even outside of wrestling fans. And I don't think Bret Hart has the juice for that. Shawn Michaels at that time didn't have the juice for that.
When he's a heel at this point in time, too.
Let's not even talk about Mabel or any of those other. I
think we should really talk about Mabel.
Yeah,
Eric Bischoff loves when you talk about Mabel.
Yeah, or any of those other people who I think at some point or another probably were in the NWO, but I don't think that this would have ever made the lasting impression it did without it being Hulk Hogan. And, you know, kudos to Terry for actually pulling the trigger and not backing out, because, you know, this rejuvenated his failing career, set him, well, I won't say failing, we'll say flailing career. It set him up for the eventual return to the WWE, I think it was, when he did come back. I think they'd already dropped the F at that point. So it probably added 20 years to his career. Easy, just in this one moment.
So looking at the show overall, I think that 96 Bash at the Beach, I think Bischoff pretty much nails it when he says that this show is kind of the perfect ideal of what he calls the buffet. This is a show where you have a lucha libre match, you have an ECW style street fight, you have a couple of southernish wrestling style stip matches with the Carson City sock on a pole and the taped fists. You've got some main event type wrestling stuff. You've got mid card. You've got technical. You've got the big name stuff at the top. If you are any kind of wrestling fan, there is something on this show for you to like. The question is that the best plan when theoretically then maybe you don't like as much the other stuff on the card? Or do you think that, I mean, obviously we know who ends up winning out in the Monday Night Wars in the long run, but in terms of the way this is laid out, what do you think of that as a strategy for sort of booking a card?
You know, it's a pretty solid approach. You know, I'll agree with Bischoff that there was something on the card for every type of wrestling fan. Me personally, you began and you ended on really high notes. Could I have lived without the majority of the middle? Yeah, probably. You know, the sock on a pole match. You know, there's a fan base for that. I'm not it. The Public Enemy street fight, you know, that kind of hardcore match, when pulled off well, you know, I'll pop for that. But that match kind of meh. But, you know, as a generic structure with star power and good execution, that's a good way to set it up, because you make every fan happy. It's just the biggest problem that this event suffered from was the fact that, you know, you had that Lucha Libre match, which was great. Your technical match with Dean Malenko was great. Your big name main event was great. And then there was just slop in the middle that, you know, if it hadn't been there, if you had narrowed that down to like 4 or 5 matches, that card would still be one of the better ones of all time with how it ended. So, you know, I see where Bischoff's coming from. I just think, and it'll get better, but I just think the execution in this one show could have been better in the middle of the card, as opposed to how good the beginning and the top were.
Yeah, it's very much a double-edged sword, building a show this way. When it all hits, it's going to be amazing. When even when more of it hits than doesn't, it's going to be amazing. Otherwise, you end up in a situation where, and this is really what happens on this show. You have to have 2 or 3 things that are so good that they're the things that are going to stick in forever when you think of the show. And they pulled that off with the cruiserweight the 2 cruiserweight matches and the main event. The other stuff is all going to be things where at the best your mileage is going to vary. And so when you have more things that miss than hit, which I don't necessarily agree with that assessment of this card, but I can see where that is a valid one. Those are the kinds of things that put you in the hole long term if you're not consistently hitting with a show that is this much of a buffet.
When I look at it, the big thing that comes out to it for me, and some behind the scenes looks at this. We are recording this on the Thursday before WrestleMania weekend. That show will have 9 hours of coverage per day. And the first day has 8 matches on the card. The second day has 7. This show is a tight 2 hours, 45 to 3 hours, and has 9 matches in that time. I will take that over backstage promos to ad nauseum just about any day. I think I can appreciate even the bad matches for being what they are. So I guess let's roll it over to final grades. Matt, you can go first. What did A through F? Where do you put the Bash at the Beach 96?
It's hard for me because I want to give Bash at the Beach 1996 the most solid A that of any program I've ever gotten, just because I remember it's a moment in my life that I remember the NWO stuff starting right there. Having relived this card and had to force myself to watch part of it because I got so disinterested, I'm hard pressed to give it an A. I'll give the main event and the 2 cruiserweight matches the solidest A+ ever. The rest of the card, I'll give it a generous D. It wasn't the best card. You average that out, you fall somewhere in the B's. So, I want to like it more than I did. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yo, what are you thinking?
I think that if we were literally to just take this card on match quality and nothing else, this is probably a C+ or maybe a B- card. Even with the 2 or 3 really standout matches. It's really unfortunate that you have Joe Gomez and Steve McMichael. I don't think I talked about it. I had Hacksaw and DDP as a generous 1 star.
Yeah, I think I was about the same. I think I gave it 1.5 to be nice because I didn't want it to be the worst card on the match.
Yeah, yeah. If it weren't for Mongo and Joe, Hacksaw and DDP would have been in trouble. But all of just the raw importance of the card, the things that they do from a storytelling perspective, even with the couple matches that didn't have any build, they do a pretty good job of finding a way to tell some story there. So I think if you look exclusively from importance and storytelling, I think it's probably an A or maybe even an A+. I think that overall, yeah, it's like B+, I would say.
All right. Well, I think that I'm going to probably come in ahead of all of you. Maybe it's just watching so much modern WWE and how little actual wrestling you see, but like it or hate it, there is a lot of wrestling on this card, and it is varied, it is different, and the highs are some of the highest highs that you're going to get. That Mysterio Psychosis match is legitimately one of the greatest matches I think of all time. The main event is, from a wrestling standpoint, not amazing, but in terms of what it does and what it represents and the story behind it, there's never been anything like it. And I don't come down as hard. There's a lot of things I liked in that street fight that, maybe you guys didn't sell so much on. But for me, I'm going to put this one at an A-. This just like the bar is set so high by those two, the opener and the closers, that there's only so far that even a bad mid card could drag it down for me. I think the most important thing is that we got 1 for the NWO, so the score is 1-0. 1 for the good guys. Let's go ahead and head home ourselves. I've been your host, Adam. Joe, Matt, we're happy to have you here. We don't have social media stuff yet, but maybe we will at some point. But for now, thanks for listening. We'll catch you for Nitro in a couple of weeks. The New Pod Order is a sister show of the Analyzing Attitude podcast, which you probably guessed from us being on their channel. Be sure to drop a leg on the like and subscribe buttons, and if you like our show, you should give theirs a listen, because you'll probably like it too. Its opening video was created by Ace, and the theme was recorded by Jade Garrow and is used with permission. If you want to contact the show, our email address is newpodorderpodcast@gmail.com, or reach out to us on X at NPOrderPodcast. The show is hosted by Adam and Matt Rogers and Joe Chasick, who want you to remember that when you're NPO for life.